I knew Dean thought therapy was weakness. I had heard him call it paying somebody to agree with your excuses, even after I reminded him the VA wasn't charging me a dime. What I hadn't heard was what he said when he believed my counselor couldn't hear him. The VA already pays you for being broken, he said, leaning one hand on the kitchen table. How much more attention do you need? Shut this down and fix my day. My finger was resting beside the mute button. I could have tapped it. I'd muted Elaine for lesser things, the garbage disposal, a delivery driver, Dean yelling from the shop because he couldn't find a tape measure sitting 6 inches from his elbow. Instead, I moved my hand into my lap. On the laptop screen, Elaine Porter didn't flinch. She didn't widen her eyes or put on the soft, tragic face people used when they wanted you to know they had just decided your life was sad. She remained still, a woman in a navy cardigan sitting in front of a bookcase with one stubbornly crooked shelf. Dean pointed toward my phone. Travis has been waiting 10 minutes. The revised schedule is in your inbox. I don't need an email. I need you to call him. I'm in an appointment. His mouth twisted, clearly. Then he walked away. The back door slammed hard enough to shake the little ceramic bowl where we kept keys, loose screws, and one Canadian coin neither of us could explain. Elaine waited until the sound of Dean's truck faded. Is that how he speaks to you when no one is listening? She asked. I looked at the black square where my own face floated beneath hers. I appeared calm. That was the trouble with me. I could look calm while calculating blood loss, fuel range, and whether a man would still have a leg when we landed. It's worse when he needs something, I said. The sentence came out before I could make it nicer. Elaine glanced down, probably at her notes. She never typed while I spoke. I appreciated that more than I had told her. Typing made me feel like I was being entered into evidence. You canceled our last 2 sessions. We were busy. Was Dean busy? I let out a short laugh. Dean is always busy, even when everyone else is doing the work. That sounded almost like an answer. She had a dry sense of humor that took some getting used to. During our second session, I had told her I didn't like open-ended questions. She'd said, that must make therapy feel like being trapped in a car with someone who refuses to use a map. I'd liked her after that, though I made a point of not showing it. Outside the kitchen window, Dean crossed the gravel between the house and the workshop. He held his phone away from his ear and chopped the air with his free hand, which meant Travis had answered and was now being blamed for a problem he hadn't caused. I canceled because we had a hotel estimate due, I said. We. Vance Custom Cabinetry. Do you own part of the company? No. Are you employed by the company? Depends which tax form you ask. Elaine gave me that quiet look counselors must practice in graduate school. It wasn't judgment exactly. It was more like she had set an empty chair between us and was waiting to see whether I'd fill it with the truth. I rubbed a pale dent in the table where Dean had once dropped a clamp. I handle scheduling and client communication, I said. Some estimates, materials tracking, the things that keep men with saws from arriving at the wrong house. And when you have a counseling appointment? Most days, the men with saws survive. Today? I glanced at my phone. 3 missed calls from Dean, a message from Travis, another from Owen, Dean's younger brother. Need final install order. Dean says, ask you. I'm less confident, I said. Elaine smiled, but only for a second. Mara, do you feel safe in your home? Yes. The answer came from training. Not thought. Direct question, direct answer, no hesitation. She noticed. Let me ask differently. When Dean is angry, are you afraid of what he'll do? No, he's never hit me. That wasn't what I asked. I know. The workshop compressor started with a low mechanical growl. I could feel it through the soles of my feet. Our house had been Dean's grandfather's, a white 1-story place close enough to the family shop that sawdust appeared in rooms with closed windows. When we first moved in, I'd called that charming. 6 years later, I found sawdust in the butter dish and took it personally. Dean gets loud, I said. He throws things near things. He doesn't throw things at me. Elaine stayed quiet. He punches doors sometimes, but only cheap ones. He knows what replacement doors cost. That was a joke. It was also accurate. Mara, I'm safe. She nodded once. She didn't agree. She just accepted that I wasn't going farther today. We had 7 minutes left. I knew because the clock in the corner of my screen said 10:53, and Dean had trained himself to appear at 10:55 whenever I scheduled something that didn't involve him. Elaine asked me to take one breath before answering her next question. I told her I'd been breathing for 39 years with decent results. One intentional breath, she said. I did it mostly to move things along. What did you want to do? She asked. When he called you broken? The answer that came to mind was ugly and childish. I wanted to embarrass him. I wanted Elaine to climb through the laptop, follow him into the shop and say, "Sir, I have reviewed the situation, and your wife is not the weak one here." Instead, I said, "I wanted to finish my appointment. You chose not to mute me. I forgot. No, you didn't." My face got hot. That irritated me more than Dean's comment had, which was unfair but convenient. Anger at Elaine had edges. Anger at Dean was a drawer full of loose knives. I don't know what you want me to say. I'm not looking for a particular answer. That makes one of us. She sat back. Then what answer were you looking for? Before I could respond, my phone vibrated against the table. Dean again. I stared at his name until the screen went dark. Elaine said, "You can call him after we finish." I know. But the truth was, for one full second, I hadn't known. My whole body had tightened like I'd missed a radio call during a mission. Dean needed an answer. A delay had occurred. Somewhere a crew was waiting. Therefore, I was already late. The Army had rewarded that reflex. Dean had built a business on it. We scheduled the next session for Thursday at 10. I almost asked for a different time, one that wouldn't interfere with the hotel installation meeting, but Elaine was watching me. Thursday at 10, I said. After the call ended, I left the laptop open and sat in the sudden quiet. A yellow legal pad lay beside it. At the top, in my handwriting, were the words, "Sleep 4 hours," followed by a list of things I had intended to discuss. The rescue flight, the sound of hail on metal, why I sometimes woke with my hands curled as if I were still holding pressure over a wound. I drew one line through the whole list. Then I picked up my phone. Travis answered on the first ring. "Please tell me I'm going to Franklin first. You're going to Murfreesboro." There was a long pause. Dean said Franklin. Dean also sent the Franklin doors to finishing yesterday. They won't be ready until 3. Another pause, gentler this time. "You okay, Mara? Why?" "Nothing. You just sound, if you say tired, I'll move you to Alabama." He laughed. "Murfreesboro it is." I called Owen next. He was already at the shop, and I could hear Dean in the background saying my name with the particular outrage of a man who had misplaced something he believed belonged to him. "The Ashford order is short. 2 panels, Owen said. "It isn't. The panels are stacked behind the Walnut Island. I checked there. Did you check behind the island, or did you stand in front of it and experience disappointment?" Owen snorted. "There she is." That was a family phrase. There she is. They said it whenever I became useful again, as if the real me had wandered off and left a defective substitute in my chair. I closed my eyes. "Move the packing blankets," I told him. "The panels are vertical against the wall." A muffled exchange followed. Something scraped across concrete. "Well, hell," Owen said. "Found them." Of course he had. Dean took the phone. "What was that in there? What was what?" "You know what?" Sitting in the kitchen while Travis is calling me, acting like I'm interrupting something important. It was important. It was talking. "So is what you're doing now." Silence. Dean could be funny, affectionate, and almost boyishly pleased by a perfect piece of maple. He could spend an hour sanding an edge no customer would ever touch. He cried at old dogs in movies and denied it while wiping his face with his whole forearm. The cruel version of him never erased those things. It stood beside them, wearing the same work boots. "Did she hear me?" he asked. I looked at Elaine's empty rectangle on the laptop, the call already ended. The audio was on, I said. That's not what I asked. Yes, it is. Mara. I had lied in helicopters with alarms screaming around me. I had told wounded men they were doing great when their vital signs said otherwise. Those lies had weight and purpose. This one felt small enough to choke on. The connection froze, I said. Dean exhaled. Good. Last thing we need is some stranger getting the wrong idea about me. I looked down at the legal pad. Broken, I wrote beneath the crossed-out list. Not weak, not unstable. Broken. The exact word he had used when he thought nobody important could hear him. You still there? He asked. Yes. Can you come out and look at the hotel drawings? Owen thinks the appliance wall is off. In the background, Owen said, I said it might be off. Dean covered the phone badly. Same difference. For years, that kind of problem had pulled me out of bed, out of appointments, out of my own thoughts. A measurement was either right or wrong. Wood didn't have moods. A drawing didn't accuse you of remembering it unfairly. If I found the error, everyone relaxed, and Dean looked at me like I was the only person in the world who could save him. That look had passed for love longer than I wanted to admit. I'll be there in 5 minutes, I said. I closed the laptop, slid it into its case, and put the legal pad in the kitchen drawer under expired coupons and takeout menus. Then I crossed the gravel to the shop. Dean stood over the hotel drawings with both palms on the work table. He looked up when I entered, and relief moved across his face so quickly it almost softened me. There she is, he said. Owen handed me a tape measure. I took it. Of course I took it. But while Dean explained the problem, I kept hearing Elaine's question. What did you want to do when he called you broken? I still didn't know. I only knew what I had done. I had made sure someone else heard him. The appliance wall wasn't off. I checked the scale on the drawing, measured the marked run twice, then compared it to the field notes Owen had taken at the hotel. Dean hovered over my right shoulder, breathing coffee and cinnamon gum near my ear. Give her room, Owen said. I'm giving her room. You're practically wearing her. Dean stepped back with an irritated sigh. Fine. I laid the 2 pages side by side. One had been printed Monday morning. The other had been printed Tuesday afternoon. The wall is right, I said. The refrigerator changed. Owen bent closer. It's the same refrigerator, same model, different trim kit. See the depth? He squinted at the tiny specifications. That's 3/4 of an inch, 7/8, which is basically 3/4, not after you build cabinets around it. Dean reached between us and tapped the newer page. The designer sent that after we finalized. She sent it Monday at 4:17. We finalized Monday morning. You finalized Monday morning. She emailed a change request and you replied, No problem, we can accommodate. Dean's finger stopped moving. Owen made a low sound in his throat. It wasn't quite a laugh, but it had laugh-related ambitions. Don't, Dean told him. I didn't say anything. You made a noise. I have lungs. Dean looked at me. Did I copy you on that email? No. Well, there's the problem. I stared at him. The problem is that you approved a change without checking what it changed. I assumed she was talking about the finish. She attached 3 specification sheets. I was on my phone. I had once watched Dean carve a curved face frame by hand because a machine-cut version looked, according to him, emotionally dishonest. He could see a difference in grain direction from across a room. Put an email attachment in front of him, though, and he became a Victorian child confronted with electricity. Owen leaned his hip against the work table. Can we still use the cabinet? We can trim the refrigerator panel, I said, but the upper cabinet has to lose depth or the doors won't clear properly. How long? If Luis hasn't sprayed it yet, a few hours. Dean was already reaching for his phone. Call him. I kept my eyes on the drawings. You call him. He paused. You know how to explain it. So do you. Luis gets touchy when plans change. People usually get touchy when we make them redo finished work. We aren't making him redo anything. We're adjusting. Owen looked at the ceiling. Dean held the phone out to me. "Mara, please. I have to call the designer." There was the word. Please. Clean, reasonable, almost tender. If anyone had walked in at that moment, they would have seen a busy husband asking his capable wife for help. They would not have seen the kitchen. I took the phone. Dean smiled, squeezed the back of my neck, and said, "Thank you." My body reacted to that little bit of warmth as if I'd been standing outside in winter. That embarrassed me more than taking the phone. Luis complained for 6 minutes. I let him. Then I promised revised drawings by noon, moved one finishing job behind the hotel panels, and offered to send Owen over with lunch. By the time we hung up, he was calling me "mi capitani" and pretending the entire thing had been his idea. Dean had moved to the other end of the table. He was showing Owen a photograph of a walnut reception desk, both of them bent over the screen. "Luis will adjust it," I said. Dean looked up. "Knew you'd handle it." Not "thank you." Not "I'm sorry I put you in that position." Knew you'd handle it. I set his phone beside the drawings. I need the original site measurements before I revise anything. Owen pointed toward a stack of folders on a stool. Blue folder. There were 4 blue folders. I found the hotel notes in the third one, beneath an invoice for drawer slides Dean insisted he had never received. I carried everything to the little desk against the shop wall. Calling it my desk would have been generous. It was where people put things they didn't want to deal with but feared throwing away. A cracked calculator, 3 cabinet knobs, a dead battery, Dean's sunglasses, which he'd accused me of losing the previous Friday. I put them on top of his phone without comment. For the next 2 hours, I worked through the revised elevations while routers whined and the big dust collector pulled at the air. Noise had never bothered me when it had a source. A compressor starting was a compressor. A saw-biting oak was a saw-biting oak. It was the small, unexplained sounds that found their way under my ribs, the ice maker dropping cubes at midnight, Hale ticking against a metal roof, Dean testing the locked bedroom door after an argument. At 11:48, I emailed the revised drawings to Luis, Owen, and the hotel designer. I copied Dean. Then I printed 2 sets because Dean believed paper became more trustworthy if it was warm. He came over as the printer pushed out the last page. "Looks good," he said before reading any of it. "Check the dimensions." "I trust you." "Check them anyway." He flipped through the pages fast enough to create a breeze. "Looks good." I turned back to the computer. His hand settled on my shoulder. "You mad at me?" "No. You've got that tone. I'm revising a cabinet because you approved a change you didn't read. So yes, I'm stating what happened. That's the tone." Owen was at the assembly table 15 feet away fitting hinges. He didn't look over, which meant he was listening carefully. Dean lowered his voice. "I shouldn't have interrupted your thing. My appointment." "Your appointment." I was stressed. I noticed. And what I said came out wrong. I waited. Dean rubbed his thumb over the seam of my shirt. "I don't think you're broken." There were apologies that opened a door. Dean's apologies searched for a side window. "You said the VA pays me for being broken." I was being sarcastic. What part was sarcastic? All of it. So the VA doesn't pay me? His hand disappeared from my shoulder. "See, this is what I mean," he said. "You pick one sentence apart until I can't say anything. You could say you're sorry. I just did." "No, you explained why I shouldn't be hurt." His expression hardened, then softened so quickly I almost doubted I'd seen the first one. "I'm sorry," he said, "okay? I'm sorry I interrupted your appointment and said something stupid because I was under pressure." There it was, technically complete, structurally sound, built from cheap material. "Thank you," I said. He kissed my temple. "Come eat before Mom takes all the good biscuits." Carol Vance had arrived sometime during the appliance crisis with 2 paper sacks and a plastic gallon of sweet tea. She came to the shop every Wednesday with enough food for 8 people, though there were usually 4 of us. Carol prepared for lunch the way some people prepared for hurricanes. She had spread fried chicken, green beans, biscuits, and sliced tomatoes across the break room table. At 67, she wore her silver hair in a chin-length bob that never moved, even in Tennessee humidity. Her lipstick matched her nails. She looked more prepared to fire someone than feed them. "There she is," Carol said when I entered. I nearly turned around. "Mara saved the hotel job," Owen told her. "I adjusted one cabinet, because Dean can't read attachments." Dean pulled out a chair. "Owen's trying to be funny today." "He should try harder," Carol said. That surprised a laugh out of me. Dean stared at her. "Whose side are you on?" "The chickens." Carol handed me a plate already filled with a breast, 2 biscuits, and vegetables cooked far beyond any recognizable stage of life. Feeding people was how she expressed affection and control in equal measure. She sat across from me. "Dean says you're having trouble sleeping again." I looked at him. He focused on buttering a biscuit. "I sleep," I said. "That wasn't what I heard." "I said she's had a few rough nights," Dean replied. "She's dealing with it." Carol's eyes moved over my face, not unkindly. "You still talking to that VA woman?" "Elaine?" "Yes. I went to counseling after Walt died. 3 sessions. Dean smiled. "You hated it." "I hated her." "What did she do?" Owen asked. "She kept asking how things made me feel. Your father was dead. I felt inconvenienced." Owen choked on his tea. Carol shrugged. "Grief is 90% paperwork and people bringing you pasta." Despite myself, I smiled. What was the other 10%? Being angry, he got out of cleaning the gutters. For a moment, the table loosened. This was the Vance family at its best, dry, practical, held together by food and insults that stopped half an inch before the bone. Then Carol reached over and patted my wrist. "You're strong, honey. Don't let those people convince you there's something wrong with you." Dean tore his biscuit in half. I knew Carol meant it as reassurance. I also knew the safest response was gratitude. Talking to Elaine isn't about convincing me something's wrong. Well, of course not. It's about sleeping. And other things. "What other things?" Dean asked. The room seemed to narrow. I took a drink of tea. It was sweet enough to preserve organs. "Things I discuss with my counselor." Dean gave a little laugh for the table. "Apparently, I'm classified now." Carol looked between us. "Marriage gets a lot easier when you stop needing to know everything." "Dad knew everything you were thinking," Owen said. "Your father barely knew what he was thinking." They laughed. Dean did too, but his knee bounced under the table. I finished half my lunch, wrapped the rest in foil, and went back to the desk. An email from the hotel designer was waiting. "Thank you, Mara. These revisions are perfect. Please have Dean confirm production approval." I forwarded it to him with one line, "Please confirm." He replied from across the shop, "Confirmed. Great work, team." At home that evening, Dean cooked spaghetti. He only cooked 3 things, and all of them required 1 large pot and excessive garlic. Music played from his phone on the counter. He poured me wine without asking, and bumped his hip against mine when I reached for a fork. Peace with Dean was rarely quiet. He performed it until I joined. "Mom thinks Elaine's turning you against the family," he said lightly. "Your mother said no such thing. Not in those words." "Then what words?" He stirred the sauce. "She worries you dwell on stuff. She attended 3 counseling sessions and declared grief mostly paperwork." "Exactly. Mom processes things." I laughed once. "Carol buries things in cream of mushroom soup." He smiled. Also effective. For a few minutes we were ourselves again, or the version I kept trying to recover. We ate at the table. Dean told me Owen had installed a pull-out backward and tried to blame the hardware. I told him Travis had spent 20 minutes driving toward Franklin before reading my message. Dean reached across the table and stole a mushroom from my plate. Then he said, "I need you at the hotel meeting Thursday at 10. My fork stopped. "I have counseling Thursday at 10, so move it. I just scheduled it. The hotel meeting is important. So is my appointment." His smile remained, but it no longer belonged to the conversation. "Mara, this contract is worth a lot to us. To you." He leaned back. "Here we go." I could feel the old machinery inside me starting up. Assess, prioritize, prevent damage. Elaine had openings later in the week. The designer might change something else Dean wouldn't read. Rescheduling would take 30 seconds. I picked up my fork. "I'm not moving it," I said. Dean looked at me as if I had spoken in another language. Then he laughed. Not because anything was funny, because he was certain I didn't mean it. "I mean it," I said. Dean's laugh faded, but he kept the shape of it on his face. "You're going to skip the biggest client meeting we've had this year so you can talk about your feelings. I'm going to attend an appointment I already made. We can reschedule a counselor. We can't reschedule a hotel. The hotel has been there since 1987. You know what I mean?" "I do." That was part of the problem. I always knew what he meant. I translated Dean for clients, installers, his mother, and sometimes Dean himself. I took whatever came out sharp and handed it back to the world with the edges sanded. He pushed his plate away. "Fine." "Fine?" I said, "Fine. You're angry." "No, I'm respecting your boundary." He lifted his wine glass. "Isn't that the correct therapy word?" I got up and carried my plate to the sink. Behind me, he said, "I need the final drawing packet printed before 9. I emailed it to you. I need paper. The printer is beside your desk. Is there a reason you're being difficult?" I turned on the faucet. "You just said you respected my boundary. I respect your appointment. That doesn't mean you stop helping with work. Printing is work now? It is when I ask you to do it and you turn it into a federal case." I washed my plate slowly. Soap, rinse, rack. A procedure with a clear end. Dean scraped his chair back. "Forget it. I'll do it myself." The last time he had said that about printing a presentation, he had used photo paper, printed 32 pages in full color, and complained for a week about the cost of ink. "Print 2 sets, I said. "The designer marks by hand." He waited, possibly for me to offer after all. I kept washing the already clean fork. "I know how to print," he said. "I didn't say you didn't. You have a way of saying things without saying them." That, from Dean, was almost art. He left his plate on the table and went to bed. I stood at the sink until the pipes began to knock, then shut off the water. His plate sat in a shallow puddle of sauce, the fork laid across it like he had planned to return. I wrapped the leftovers, wiped the counters, checked the back lock, and turned off the kitchen light. Then I turned it back on and washed his plate. At 7 the next morning, the printer started screaming. It wasn't designed to scream, but Dean had opened every panel it possessed and was pulling at a sheet of paper with both hands. "Don't," I said from the doorway. He froze. The printer made a grinding noise. "What did you do?" "Nothing. Printers don't open themselves like that. It jammed." "Because you put the paper in the photo tray. The paper goes where paper goes." I closed my eyes. He stood in dress pants, a white shirt, and socks. His tie hung untied around his neck. Dean dressed formally about 3 times a year, each time like a man being extradited. "Move," I said. He stepped aside immediately. I eased the sheet backward, lifted a roller, removed 2 torn corners, then reloaded the regular tray. The display showed 17 copies of page 6 waiting in the queue. "Why 17? I hit print. 17 times? It didn't do anything the first 16. I canceled the queue. He leaned against the desk while I restarted the job. "See? This is why you should come. Because the hotel may have a printer? Because you know the details. The details are in the packet. People ask questions. Answer them." He rubbed his face. "Mara, can we not do this today? I'm fixing the printer." "You know what I mean." There it was again. The first set began sliding into the output tray. Dean gathered the pages before they were finished and immediately mixed their order. "Wait, I've got it. You're putting set 2 inside set 1. He dropped everything back onto the tray. "Then you do it." I separated the pages, stapled each packet, and put them in his leather portfolio. My hands knew how to prepare people to leave. In the Army, I'd checked gear even when the person carrying it had checked twice. Complacency was a polite word for getting someone hurt. Dean bent his head so I could tie his tie. I stared at him. "What?" he asked. "You're 42. And you can tie a tie, you do it better. I'm not tying your tie. His eyebrows rose. Not anger yet. Surprise. Seriously? Watch a video. I don't have time to watch a video. You have 20 minutes before you need to leave. Fine. He pulled the tie from his collar and threw it on the desk. I'll go without one. You'll survive. He picked up the portfolio. At the door, he stopped. I'm sorry about what I said yesterday. The apology was so unexpected, I nearly missed the timing of it. He looked tired. Not theatrically tired. His jaw was dark with a patch he'd missed shaving, and one side of his collar was tucked under itself. I remembered the morning of his father's funeral, standing in this same room while Dean shook so badly I had to fasten every button on his shirt. I shouldn't have called you broken, he said. That was cruel. Something in me loosened. Thank you. He nodded. I get scared when I feel you pulling away. I'm attending counseling, Dean. I'm not pulling away. It feels like you are. That doesn't make the appointment an attack on you. I know. He shifted the portfolio under his arm. I'm trying to know. For one dangerous moment, he sounded like the man I had married, the one who drove 4 hours to bring me my own pillow after shoulder surgery, because the hospital pillow was an insult to necks, the one who once sat on the bathroom floor through a panic attack and counted floor tiles when I couldn't stand to be touched. Then he said, if you change your mind, meeting starts at 10. The loosened thing inside me drew tight again. I won't. His mouth flattened. Right. At 9:55, I put the laptop on the kitchen table. I had considered using the spare room, but product samples covered the floor, and 3 cabinet doors leaned against the desk. One had a tag reading, "Weathered Bone." Dean charged extra for colors that sounded like medical conditions. I set my phone face down beside the ceramic key bowl. Elaine appeared at 10 exactly. You look irritated, she said. I've been looking irritated since 2009. It's my face. Your face was less irritated last time. Last time my husband called me broken. Fair point. She asked how things had been since our session. I told her Dean had apologized. I didn't tell her he had placed the apology 3 minutes before one final attempt to get me into the hotel meeting. She asked what the apology meant to me. That he knew he was wrong. That's what it meant about him. What did it mean to you? I don't understand the distinction. I think you do. My phone vibrated. I watched it move against the wood. Once, paused, twice. Are you expecting a call? Elaine asked. No. Do you need to answer? No. It vibrated a 3rd time. I flipped it over. Dean. Then Owen. Then Dean, again. I switched the sound off and pushed the phone toward the far edge of the table. Elaine didn't congratulate me. I was glad. Not answering a phone for 20 seconds did not deserve a parade. I lied to him, I said. About what? I told him the connection froze before he said what he said. Why? So he wouldn't know you heard. Why don't you want him to know? I looked toward the back door. Through the glass, I could see the gravel, the quiet workshop, Dean's truck gone. If he knows you heard, it becomes an event. Wasn't it an event? No, it was a sentence you wrote down. I looked at her sharply. You looked down after he left, Elaine said. Your hand was moving. I almost laughed. Maybe I was drawing an insulting picture of you. Was it flattering? You had horns. Good. I've always wanted horns. I glanced at the kitchen drawer where I'd hidden the legal pad. I wrote one word. Broken? I nodded. Elaine folded her hands. What makes something an event in your marriage when it has consequences? For whom? The question landed harder than it had any right to. My phone lit again. This time, a message preview appeared. Owen, call me. He's telling them you're sick. I reached for the phone, then stopped with my hand above it. Elaine saw my face change. What happened? I don't know yet. Do you want to check? I opened Owen's message. Meeting okay. But designer asked why you weren't here. Dean said you had a bad night and weren't up to it. Call me. My first reaction was relief. He hadn't told them I was unstable. He hadn't mentioned the VA or counseling. A bad night could mean anything. My second reaction was familiarity. A bad night. Not up to it. Clean, sympathetic words that made Dean look protective and me look unreliable. He told the hotel designer I was sick, I said. Are you? No. Did he know you weren't attending? Yes. Did he know why? I looked at Elaine's face on the screen. Yes. What do you want to do? The phone rang again in my hand. I answered. What happened? I asked. Dean spoke in a furious whisper. Thank God. They moved the appliance wall again. Put the designer on. Mara, I need you to look at the elevation first. I'm in my appointment. This can't wait. I could hear voices behind him, the low public murmur of people standing around a conference table. You told them I was sick. Silence. Then, quieter, I had to tell them something. You could have told them I had another appointment. What kind? The kind that was already scheduled. Mara, please don't start this while I'm standing here. I looked at Elaine. She wasn't listening with fascination or horror. She was waiting. Dean lowered his voice further. Just give me 5 minutes. Fix this, and we'll talk when I get home. The familiar machinery started inside me. The hotel designer had changed a wall. The drawings might be wrong. Luis could already be cutting material. Every minute mattered. I could fix it. That was never the question. No, I said. Dean went silent. My appointment ends at 10:55. Email me the change, and I'll review it afterward. Mara, tell them I'm not sick. Tell them you made a mistake. I'm not going to humiliate myself in front of a client because you're proving a point. I'm not proving anything. You know what? Forget it. I'll handle it. He ended the call. For several seconds, I held the phone against my ear. Then I set it down. My hand was shaking. Elaine said my name once. I'm fine. I didn't ask. I know. Outside, sunlight flashed against the metal roof of the workshop. The brightness sharpened everything, the gravel, the fence, the fingerprints on the back door. Dean had said I was sick because it was easier than saying I had chosen something he could not control. And for the first time, I had let him keep the problem he created. It felt terrible. That was the first thing I told Elaine. Not brave, not freeing, not like reclaiming my voice in an inspirational commercial where a woman climbed a mountain immediately after buying the correct brand of hiking pants. Terrible. My pulse had jumped into my throat. My hands wanted a task. Every part of me strained toward the phone, the email, the hotel drawings, anything that would let me convert the feeling into work. What do you think is happening at the meeting? Elaine asked. They're waiting. For you. For an answer. Is anyone in danger? No. Will the building collapse? Not unless Dean has started doing structural engineering. Has he? He once put a deck railing on backward. Then we should remain alert. I laughed, and the laugh made my throat hurt. Elaine leaned closer to her screen. You're having a physical response to not intervening. I don't like leaving people unsupported. Is that what you did? They need the revised elevation. They have an adult contractor at the meeting. Dean doesn't understand the design software. Does he understand cabinetry? Better than almost anyone. Does Owen? Yes. Does the designer? Presumably. Though she did move an appliance wall after production approval, so the jury's out. Elaine's mouth twitched. Then what exactly have you abandoned them to? I looked at my phone. The consequences of not planning. The words sounded cruel. My mother had raised me to believe withholding help was a character defect. The Army had made help procedural. You moved toward the problem. You didn't stand nearby protecting your peace while someone else bled. But no one was bleeding. Someone might have to make a phone call they didn't enjoy. I pressed both feet against the floor. The meeting was always his responsibility, I said. Then why does it feel like yours? Because if it goes badly, I'll still live with the result. There it was. Dean could lose his temper at the hotel, but I would hear about it at dinner. He could promise an impossible deadline, but I would rearrange the shop calendar. He could offend the designer, but I would send the careful email afterward. His mistakes were communal. My limits were personal betrayals. Elaine asked what I needed in order to finish the session instead of spending the remaining time imagining disaster. A copy of the new elevation. You don't have one. No. What do you have? I looked around the kitchen. A table. Excellent. A counselor with horns. Useful in emergencies. A phone I am not going to touch. Anything else? Through the window, sunlight lay across the workshop roof. The building looked harmless without trucks outside it. Just wood, metal, dust, and all the ways I had made myself necessary. I have 38 minutes, I said. We use them. At 10:55, Elaine reminded me that the next appointment was already on the calendar. I told her I knew. She asked whether I planned to keep it. You're very suspicious. Occupational hazard. Yes, I said. I plan to keep it. When the call ended, I checked my phone. Dean had sent no messages after hanging up. Owen had sent 3. Don't call him. He's being an ass. There were 6 emails in the hotel thread. I opened the newest elevation first. A plumbing chase had been discovered behind the existing wall. The designer needed to bring the finished surface forward 2 inches, which changed the refrigerator enclosure and reduced the aisle clearance. It wasn't a small problem, but it wasn't a catastrophe. Dean had proposed removing a decorative side panel and narrowing the pantry pullout. That bought back most of the clearance without rebuilding the cabinet boxes. It was a good solution. I read his email twice looking for the part I needed to correct. There wasn't one. The designer had approved it. Owen had confirmed the pantry could be modified. Luis had replied with a thumbs-up symbol he had apparently learned to make sometime after our morning call. The meeting had survived me. I sat back and let that fact be what it was. Then I called Owen. He answered with, "Before you say anything, he handled the wall. I saw. Good solution, too. I saw that. He was still an ass." About what? There was a pause filled with road noise. "Where are you?" "At home. I'm coming back for the small router. I'll tell you then. You can tell me now. I am operating a motor vehicle. You called me. And now I deeply regret it." He hung up. 20 minutes later, Owen's truck rolled into the gravel drive. He parked beside the workshop, then crossed to the house with his hands in his pockets. At 37, he looked enough like Dean that strangers sometimes mistook them for twins. But Owen was broader, quieter, and permanently covered in one mystery stain. That day, it was a stripe of blue finish across his left sleeve. I met him at the back door. "You said you were getting a router." "I am." "You walked past the shop. I wanted coffee. You hate our coffee. I want water. There's water in the shop." He frowned. "Do you want to hear this or not?" I let him in. Owen opened the refrigerator, stared past 6 bottles of water, and poured tap water into a glass. "Apparently, I wanted this water," he said. "What happened?" He drank half of it before answering. Nothing happened. Meeting went okay. "What did Dean tell them about me?" "That you had a rough night." "I know that part. The designer said she hoped you felt better. Dean said you'd been having some problems lately, but he was taking care of you." The room went very still. "What problems?" He didn't specify. "What did you say?" Owen looked into his glass. "I said you had an appointment." "What kind of appointment?" "I don't know what kind. I wasn't there when you made it. You knew I wasn't sick. I figured you probably weren't. But you let him say I was." His head came up. "What was I supposed to do? Start a family argument in a hotel conference room? You could have said I wasn't sick and make him look like a liar in front of the client." He was lying. Owen set down the glass harder than necessary. "I came here to tell you. After the meeting." "Yes, after the meeting. That's generally when you discuss what happened in a meeting." I folded my arms. He blew out a breath. "Don't look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you're taking down my serial number. I'm listening." "You listen like a sniper. I was a flight medic." Same eyes. I almost smiled. Owen saw it and relaxed slightly. Then I asked, "Has Dean said things like that before?" His gaze moved to the window. "Owen." Not exactly like that. What has he said? He scratched the blue stain on his sleeve. Sometimes when clients ask why you aren't at a site visit, he says you're having a rough day. How many times? I don't count. Estimate. I don't know, Mara. A few. What does a few mean? More than twice, less than Congress. That isn't a number. His face tightened. He's not telling people you're crazy. I didn't say he was. He says you don't always do well with crowds, or you didn't sleep. It's just something he says so people stop asking. I do fine with crowds. I know. I've spoken to rooms full of flight crews. I know. I ran mass casualty drills with 60 people talking over one another. I know, Mara. Then why would he tell clients I can't manage a site visit? Owen looked cornered, which made him defensive. Because sometimes you don't come. I work from home. Exactly. That isn't an answer. Maybe he thinks it sounds better than telling people you don't officially work for us, even though you do half the office work. The sentence entered the room and stayed there. Owen immediately looked sorry he had said it. I pulled out a kitchen chair and sat. He tells people I'm unreliable because he doesn't want to explain why I'm unpaid. I didn't say that. You came close. He doesn't use that word. He doesn't have to. Owen rubbed the back of his neck. Look, Dean talks. You know how he is. He fills silence like it insulted his mother. That doesn't make it harmless. I didn't say it was harmless. It was the first thing he'd said that didn't feel like a defense. He sat across from me. For what it's worth, he said, the designer asked for you because you know the plans, not because she thinks you're sick or not sick or whatever. She wanted you. And Dean? Dean wanted you too. That's not the same thing. No, Owen said quietly. Probably not. The back door opened before I could answer. Dean stepped in carrying his leather portfolio and the tie he had refused to wear. He looked from me to Owen. What's this? I came for the router, Owen said. The router's in the shop. I got thirsty. Dean looked at the untouched bottles in the refrigerator door, then at the glass on the table. What did you tell her? Owen stood. Nothing she didn't ask. Dean's jaw shifted. Go get the router. Planning on it. Owen moved toward the door. As he passed me, he tapped 2 fingers against the table. Not an apology, not support exactly, just acknowledgement that I was there. Dean waited until the door closed. So now you're interrogating my brother? He told me you've been telling clients I can't handle site visits. I have never said that. You tell them I have rough days. You tell them I don't do well with crowds. Sometimes you don't. When? His eyes flicked away. When, Dean? After you got back, you wouldn't even go to the grocery store on Saturdays. That was 13 years ago. I'm making a point. You're using something that happened 13 years ago to explain why I'm not in a hotel meeting today. I was trying to protect your privacy. By inventing a health problem? You were in therapy. What was I supposed to say? That I had an appointment. With whom? You didn't have to specify. People ask follow-up questions. Then let them be uncomfortable. He dropped the portfolio on the counter. You have no idea what it's like to stand there while a client wants the person who actually understands the project, and she won't answer her phone. The words hit the center of me. The person who actually understands the project, I repeated. He realized too late what he'd admitted. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. I mean the drawings. You understand the drawings because you made them, and when they're correct, you take them into meetings under your company name. When I don't attend, you tell people I'm unwell. Our company name, Vance Custom Cabinetry. You're my wife. That isn't a job title. His face hardened. Everything with you is becoming a transaction. No. I'm noticing the transactions that were already happening. He stared at me as if Elaine had spoken through my mouth. This is her, he said. This is that counselor filling your head with language. I stood slowly. Elaine didn't tell your client I was sick. I solved the problem, didn't I? Yes. He blinked. I could see that he had expected resistance, not agreement. You did, I said. You solved it. You didn't need me. That's what you wanted to prove? No, it's what happened. I walked past him and opened the kitchen drawer. The legal pad was beneath the expired coupons where I had left it. I pulled it out and returned to the table. Dean watched me write. Bad night. Not up to it. Problems lately. What is that? He asked. The language you use when I'm not there. Oh, for God's sake. He picked up the portfolio and headed toward the bedroom. At the hall, he turned back. You know what your problem is? I looked at the pad. He waited for me to ask. I didn't. His face changed when he realized I wasn't going to help him finish that sentence either. Dean recovered first. You don't know how to let anything go, he said. There it was. A problem broad enough to fit every disagreement we had ever had and vague enough that I couldn't defend myself without proving it. He walked away before I could respond. The bedroom door closed. Not slammed. A controlled, mature click, which somehow annoyed me more. I stood at the table with the legal pad open. Beneath problems lately, I wrote, can't let anything go. Then I stared at the list until the words stopped looking like language. It wasn't evidence. I wasn't building a case. I had spent too many years completing reports to mistake a few phrases for objective truth. Reports required time, place, witnesses, sequence. This was just a page in my kitchen, tucked beneath takeout menus. Still, I didn't tear it out. Dean stayed in the bedroom until dinner. When he emerged, he had changed into jeans and one of the old gray t-shirts he wore when he wanted the evening to look normal. You want burgers? He asked. I'm not hungry. I didn't ask if you were hungry. I asked if you wanted burgers. Those were apparently distinct conditions. No, thank you. He opened the freezer, moved a bag of peas, and closed it. We can't keep doing this. Doing what? This. He gestured between us. Walking around like everything's loaded. I'm sitting. You know what I mean? I almost told him that had become my least favorite sentence. Instead, I closed the legal pad. He noticed it. You're really writing down what I say now? I wrote down what you tell clients. So you can report me to Elaine. I don't report to Elaine. That's funny, because lately she seems to outrank me. The military reference was deliberate. Dean knew how much I disliked people reducing 12 years of service to rank, obedience, and shouting. He had once told a dinner guest that I could probably fold a fitted sheet because the Army taught discipline. The Army had taught me how to load casualties in blackout conditions. Fitted sheets remained beyond the reach of government training. I'm not discussing my counseling with you when you use it against me. I'm not using anything against you. You called it weakness. I apologized. You also blamed the apology on pressure. His hands fell to his sides. There, you did it again. Did what? Pulled apart the wording until the apology doesn't count. An apology can count and still be incomplete. According to Elaine, according to me. He looked almost hurt. That was the expression that usually ended arguments. Anger I could resist. Hurt made me reach for tools. This time, I waited. After a moment, Dean opened the freezer again. I'm making burgers, he said. He made 2. I ate mine at the table while he watched a restoration show in the living room. Neither of us acknowledged the plate he had set in front of me or the fact that he'd remembered I liked the edges nearly burned. In the morning, I woke at 4:12 to the sound of Hale. I sat upright, heart racing, before I realized it was only pecans dropping from the tree onto the metal awning over the back porch. Dean slept on his stomach beside me, one arm under the pillow. He had always slept like a man who trusted the roof. I slipped out of bed and went to the kitchen. The legal pad was still on the table. I read the phrases in the blue light from the stove clock, then turned to a blank page. At the top, I wrote what I do. I listed scheduling first, then estimates, drawing revisions, client emails, materials tracking, installer coordination, change orders, finish approvals, invoice follow-up, and the weekly production calendar. Dean called that spreadsheet. The list filled one page, then half of another. I added ordering printer ink because apparently civilization depended on me for that too. At 6:30, Dean entered wearing work clothes and carrying one boot. Have you seen the other one? By the hall bench. It's not there. It is. He returned to the hall and came back with the boot. Why was it under the bench? Gravity. He glanced at the legal pad. What's that? A list of what I do for the shop. His shoulders went rigid. Why? I wanted to see it. You know what you do. I knew the individual pieces. I hadn't put them together. Put them together for what? I capped the pen. Does there have to be for what? With you lately, yes. The coffee maker gurgled between us. Dean poured a cup before it finished brewing, which made the remaining coffee weak and left a brown puddle on the warming plate. I've never said you don't help, he said. Help is holding a board while somebody clamps it. This is operations work. We're married. Married people help each other. What do I call you at the VA? His face changed. That's different. Why? Because I don't know anything about your work. You don't know everything about mine either. It's my company. Yes. I hadn't sharpened the word, but he heard an edge. He took his coffee and left through the back door without cleaning the puddle. At 8:15, the shop phone started forwarding calls to my cell. I knew because the first person to reach me was Mrs. Ashford, whose kitchen had been missing crown molding for 9 days. Mara, honey, I don't want to be difficult, she began, which was how clients announced they had been patient long enough to become dangerous. You aren't being difficult. Dean said someone would come Tuesday. I opened the production calendar. No one had been assigned Tuesday. Did he give you a time? After lunch. Of course he had. A time made a promise sound, scheduled even when it had never entered a schedule. I'm checking now. You always sort it out. That's why I called the office instead of him. The sentence should have felt like praise. It didn't. I found an opening Friday morning. Normally, I would have apologized for the confusion, blamed a supplier delay, and offered to send Travis. Then I would have informed Dean after the problem was solved. Instead, I said, Dean handles installation commitments. Let me transfer you to him. Oh. It was a tiny sound, but I heard the disappointment. Can't you just tell me when they're coming? I can tell you Friday morning is available. If Dean promised Tuesday, he needs to confirm how he planned to staff it. Another pause. Did I catch y'all at a bad time? The question embarrassed me. Clients could smell marital tension through drywall. No, I'm making sure the person who made the commitment answers for it. I transferred her to Dean's cell. 30 seconds later, he called me. I let it ring twice before answering. What are you doing? He demanded. Working. You sent Cynthia Ashford to me. You promised her Tuesday. I told her we'd try for Tuesday. She heard a promise. Then clarify it. I gave her the Friday opening. She wants Tuesday, yes. So move something. What? I don't know. Look at the schedule. I am looking at it. Tell me which client you want to delay. He went silent. In the background, a saw stopped. Someone said something I couldn't make out. Put Travis on the Ashford job, Dean said. He's at the Larkin installation. That should be done Monday. It should be. It isn't. Why? The vent hood arrived damaged. Then send Owen. Owen's modifying the hotel pantry. For 2 days? He's also finishing the reception desk. Dean exhaled into the phone. This is exactly why I don't have time to deal with client calls. Then stop promising dates without checking. Call her back and give her Friday. I already did. She wants you to explain Tuesday. Unbelievable. He ended the call. 10 minutes later, the forwarding stopped. I stared at my silent phone. I had managed the shop line for nearly 5 years. Dean had never once turned off forwarding during business hours. The absence of ringing felt like being fired from a job no one admitted I had. At noon, Carol arrived at the house carrying an empty casserole dish. I opened the door and looked at the dish. Is this an emergency? I asked. I came to get my lid. The lid is in your hand. She looked down. Then I came for the dish. You're holding that too. Carol pressed her lips together. Are you going to invite me in? I stepped aside. She went straight to the kitchen, placed the complete dish on the counter, and inspected the room as though checking for signs of structural failure. Dean called you, I said. He calls me most days. Did he usually call you at 11:20 in the morning? Her eyes narrowed. How do you know when he called? I know him. Well, so do I. There was the problem in 6 words. I made coffee. Carol declined, then accepted when it was ready. She sat at the table and noticed the legal pad. I closed it before she could read the top page. Dean says you're refusing to take calls, she said. Dean turned off the call forwarding. He says you sent an upset client to him just to make a point. I sent a client to the person who promised her an installation date. You usually handle scheduling. Yes. So why didn't you handle it? Because he made a promise without asking me. Carol took a careful sip. That sounds like marriage. No, it sounds like bad management. Sometimes they're the same thing. She smiled faintly, expecting me to join her. I didn't. Her smile disappeared. Mara, honey, Dean's under a lot of pressure with this hotel contract. I'm not saying he should have spoken harshly. Did he tell you what he said? He said you two argued about therapy. He said the VA already pays me for being broken and asked how much more attention I needed. Carol stared into her coffee. I watched her decide how much truth she could afford. He shouldn't have said that. No. But Dean says ugly things when he feels cornered. You know that. I wasn't cornering him. I was in an appointment. I'm not excusing it. You're explaining why I shouldn't respond to it. Her head came up. For a second, I heard my own voice from the shop telling Dean the same thing about his apology. Maybe I was learning language from Elaine, or maybe I had always known the words and only recently stopped swallowing them. Carol set down her cup. Marriage can't survive if you keep records of every bad moment. I'm not keeping records. She looked at the legal pad. I put my palm over it. These are the things I do for the company. Then why hide it? Because I knew you'd call it evidence. Carol's cheeks colored. I came here because my son is upset. Did you ask why I'm upset? You've made that fairly clear, and he hasn't. She stood, taking the casserole dish with her. At the doorway, she paused. Your strength has always been that you don't fall apart over every little thing. The words were intended as praise. That was what made them so precise. I looked at the woman who brought enough food for 8 because feeding 4 never felt safe to her. What happens? I asked. If I decide something isn't little. Carol's grip tightened around the dish. She didn't answer. After she left, I returned to the kitchen table. My phone remained quiet, the shop calls no longer mine. I opened the legal pad to what I do. Beside client calls, I drew one clean line through the words. At 12:43, the shop phone began ringing again. I could hear it faintly through the closed windows. No one answered the first call, or the second. The third call lasted long enough that I could picture the red light blinking on the shop phone. Then it stopped. A minute later, it started again. I stayed at the kitchen table. That sounds more deliberate than it felt. I wasn't sitting with my arms folded, enjoying the collapse of Vance Custom cabinetry, one unanswered ring at a time. I was staring at the line I'd drawn through client calls and wondering whether a boundary still counted if it made you nauseous. The 5th call ended after 2 rings. Someone had answered. Through the window, I saw Owen cross the shop with the receiver pressed to his ear. He opened a drawer, closed it, opened another. His free hand came up in frustration. My cell rang. Owen. I answered. Hello? Where's the Ashford file? 2nd cabinet beside the printer. I'm at the 2nd cabinet, top drawer. There are no files in the top drawer. You're at the wrong cabinet. There are 2 cabinets. You're at the first one. I counted from the door. I count from the wall. Why? Because the wall doesn't move. He was silent for a beat. That's a disturbing answer. I heard a drawer slide open. Found it, he said. Why isn't the phone forwarding to you? Ask Dean. Dean's in the spray room. Then wait until he comes out. The person on line 2 wants to know if we build vanities. Do we? I know we build vanities. I don't know what to ask her. Name, number, project address, target date, whether construction has started and who referred her. Slow down. I repeated the list while he wrote. What target dates do we have open? He asked. The production calendar is on the shared drive. I don't know the password. You do. It's the shop address. The whole address? No street suffix. Capital letters? First letter. This system is hostile. This system works when people use it. Another line began ringing in the background. Owen sighed. Can you turn forwarding back on? No, can't or won't. Dean turned it off. That's not what I asked. Apparently, both Vance brothers had attended the same school of conversational evasion. I won't. He lowered his voice. Okay, are you quitting? I don't have a job to quit. You know what I mean. I pressed my fingers to my forehead. Stop saying that. Saying what? That I know what everybody means. Say what you mean. The second line kept ringing. Owen finally said, Are you done helping us? I looked at the legal pad. I don't know. That's an answer, I guess. He didn't sound angry. He sounded worried, which was worse. Ask Dean how he wants calls handled, I said. Dean says you're proving a point. I'm not the one who turned off forwarding. Yeah. Owen paused. I mentioned that. How'd it go? He invited me to mind my own business, then asked me to finish his reception desk. That sounds like Dean. It does. He thanked me for the file location and hung up to answer the other line. I tried to do something unrelated. I put laundry in the washer. I wiped dust from the windowsill. I opened the refrigerator and discovered a container of green beans Carol had left Wednesday, though I had watched her pack the leftovers. At 1:20, the back door opened. Dean came in with sawdust across his chest and an ink pen behind one ear. You happy? He asked. No. We missed 3 calls. I heard. One was the electrician for the hotel. Did he leave a message? No. Call him back. He called the shop because he needed something. That's generally why people call. Dean took the pen from behind his ear and dropped it on the counter. I turned forwarding off because you were sending clients to me. You're the owner. You handle the office. Then why turn off the system that lets me handle it? Because I'm not rewarding this behavior. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I had heard that sentence used on enlisted soldiers, dogs, and malfunctioning vending machines, never on an equal. What behavior? Making me pay every time I ask you for something. You promised Mrs. Ashford Tuesday without checking the schedule. And I dealt with it. What did you tell her? That Owen would come after lunch Tuesday. Owen is on the hotel modification. He'll finish Monday. He said 2 days. He always pads his estimates. Did you ask him? Dean looked away. I picked up my phone. Don't call him. You just assigned him. I'll talk to him. When? Why does every conversation with you turn into an interrogation now? Because your plans are made of other people. He laughed once sharply. That's rich. What does that mean? This house is my family's. The company is my family's. The work pays our bills. But suddenly I'm exploiting you because I need you to answer a phone. My VA payment covers almost half our household expenses. I never said it didn't. You said the company pays our bills. It does. So do I. We're married, Mara. There isn't my money and your money. There is my work and your company. He leaned both palms on the counter. Do you want a paycheck? Is that what this is? The question should have been simple. Instead, it felt like a trap laid over years. Would a paycheck make you stop telling clients I'm too unwell to attend meetings? I don't say that. Owen says you do. Owen talks too much. You've told your mother about my sleep. You tell clients I have bad days. Yesterday, you told a designer you were taking care of me while I was doing unpaid work on the project. Dean's face reddened. You want to make this ugly? Fine. Your name isn't on the business because when we started, you said you didn't want the pressure. I said I didn't want to invest my disability back pay in a workshop. You said the shop made you anxious. I said the nail gun startled me when you fired it without warning. Same difference. No, Dean, it isn't. He pushed away from the counter. You didn't want a formal role. You wanted flexibility. I remembered the conversation differently. I had been working part-time at a physical therapy clinic then, still recovering from shoulder surgery, and Dean had asked if I could help for a couple weeks until he hired an office manager. The office manager had become a future expense, then an unnecessary expense, then something we no longer discussed. I wanted time to figure out what came next, I said, and I gave you that. The confidence in his voice stunned me. You gave me work. I gave you a place where nobody cared if you had a rough day. There it was again. Not up to it. Problems lately. A rough day. Each phrase sounded kind by itself. Together, they built a small, padded room around me. Dean saw something change in my face. That came out wrong. It came out familiar. He reached for me. I stepped back. His hand stopped halfway across the counter. I'm trying to keep this family afloat, he said. So am I, then act like it. He picked up the ink pen and returned to the shop. The calls stayed at the shop for the rest of the week. Dean expected me to turn forwarding on. I expected him to ask instead of punishing me into doing it. Neither happened. The result wasn't dramatic. No contracts vanished overnight. Nobody came to repossess a table saw. The business simply became clumsier. Dean returned calls late. Owen wrote messages on scraps of lumber and lost them. Travis scheduled a site visit for the same morning he was supposed to collect finished doors. A supplier emailed me about an unpaid invoice, and I forwarded it to Dean without adding the usual note, explaining which account he could use and when the check needed to go out. He replied, "Can you just handle this?" I wrote, "The invoice and due date are attached." 3 dots appeared in the message window, disappeared, returned, then vanished for good. At home, Dean became excessively polite. He asked before using the washing machine, though he had never asked in 6 years. He thanked me for passing the salt. He said, "Excuse me," when we were standing 10 feet apart. On Wednesday night, he folded towels into dense, uneven rectangles and left them stacked on the couch like masonry. I carried mine to the bedroom and left his there. Thursday morning, I sat down with Elaine. She noticed the legal pad immediately. "What are you writing?" "What I do for Dean's company." "How long is the list?" "A page and a half. That's a lot of help. I'm starting to hate that word. What word would you use?" "Work." "Is it work you like?" That irritated me because I hadn't expected the answer to be yes. Some of it. What parts? Scheduling, solving bottlenecks, taking a mess and making it move in one direction. What parts don't you like? Being responsible for decisions I'm not allowed to make, fixing promises I didn't agree to, disappearing whenever somebody gives credit. Elaine nodded. If another company asked you to do the parts you like, would you consider it work? I know where you're going. Where? You're trying to make me say I should get a job. I didn't say that. You arranged the question. I'm a counselor. We arrange furniture and questions. I looked toward the workshop. The shop phone rang twice, then stopped. I had a job, I said, after I left the Army. Reception and patient scheduling at a physical therapy clinic. Did you like it? No. They made us wear matching purple polo shirts, the true face of oppression. They showed sweat. Elaine waited. I liked the patients, I admitted. I hated sitting still. What did you imagine doing before Dean needed help? I hadn't thought about that in years. Medical transport operations, I said. Not flying. Coordination, crews, routes, patient movement. Something where details matter for a reason. Do you know anyone doing that work? Yes. The answer surprised me. Dana Brooks had been a flight nurse in my unit. She now worked for Cumberland Regional Medical Transport outside Nashville. We exchanged birthday messages and occasional photographs of food neither of us had cooked. When did you last speak to her? Elaine asked. December. What would happen if you called? She'd answer, that sounds ominous. She asks follow-up questions. Elaine smiled. Terrible quality in a friend. After the session, I sat with Dana's name open on my phone for almost a minute. Then I called. She answered. If this is about the $20 I owe you, the statute of limitations has expired. You owe me $40. Inflation is a hoax. Her voice pulled a laugh out of me before I could prepare. She asked how I was. I said fine. She said, try again. So I told her I had been doing operations work for Dean's shop. Not everything. Not the broken comment or the hotel meeting. Just enough. When I finished, Dana said, send me your resume. I didn't call for a job. Good, because I don't have one in my pocket. Send it anyway. Why? Because you're describing 6 years of experience, like you spent them alphabetizing spice jars. I don't have a current resume. Then make one current. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and searched my files. The newest resume I found was dated 6 years earlier. Under professional experience, the final entry read, United States Army Flight Medic. Everything after that was missing. I looked through the window at the workshop where 6 years of my work had gone. Then I opened the document. The cursor blinked beneath the Army entry. I typed Vance Custom Cabinetry, then stopped. Officially, I had no title. Dean sometimes called me office manager when a client wanted to know why I was asking about budgets. He called me his wife when someone asked why my name wasn't on the company email. Once, at a trade show, he introduced me as the real boss, then laughed, so everyone understood I wasn't. I typed operations coordinator. It looked dishonest. I deleted it. I typed administrative support. That looked worse. I deleted that too. For 20 minutes, I rearranged words while the actual work remained unchanged. Scheduling crews, managing production calendars, revising drawings, communicating with clients and suppliers, preventing Dean from promising a built-in wine rack where a load-bearing post already existed. The door opened. I minimized the document. Dean entered carrying mail and a padded envelope. He put everything on the counter, then looked at my laptop. "What are you doing?" "Updating my resume." The truth surprised both of us. His face emptied. "Why?" "Because it's 6 years out of date. I understand what updating means." "Then why ask? Why do you need a resume?" I could have said Dana asked for it. That would have shifted the conversation onto her, a person Dean could dismiss as a bad influence despite having met her twice. "I want one," I said. "For what?" "To see what work I qualify for. You have work. I help you." He heard his own word and looked away. "Mara, if this is about the phones, turn forwarding back on. It's not about the phones. Then what is it about?" "I haven't decided yet. That sounds like something Elaine told you to say." He began sorting the mail into piles, though all 3 piles seemed to contain items addressed to him. Elaine asked a question. "I called Dana." "Dana Brooks?" "Yes." "The one who told you to leave the hospital against medical advice?" "She told me to ask for a different surgeon." "You left." The new surgeon repaired my shoulder correctly. Dean tossed an envelope onto the counter. "Dana doesn't understand our life. She understands operations. So do you. That's why you handle them here." I turned the laptop toward him. The blank space beneath my Army service filled half the screen. "What is my job title?" He glanced at it. "Office manager? Is that what you tell the accountant?" His mouth tightened. "We can add you to payroll." "Doing what?" "What you already do. For how many hours?" "As many as it takes." "At what rate?" "Jesus, Mara, I don't have a compensation package prepared. You brought this up 30 seconds ago. You asked if I wanted a paycheck last week." I was angry. "So the offer wasn't real?" "I didn't say that." He walked to the refrigerator and opened it. The cold light hit his face. "We can work something out after the hotel payment clears," he said. "But putting yourself on payroll now raises costs. It also acknowledges the work exists. I acknowledge it. You acknowledge it when you need it." He closed the refrigerator without taking anything. "Do what you want," he said. "Just don't expect the shop to stop because you're having an identity crisis." He picked up the padded envelope and left. I reopened the resume. Under Vance Custom Cabinetry, I typed Operations Coordinator again. This time I left it. Dana called that afternoon and made me read every bullet aloud. "Manage cross-functional workflow," I said. "No. That's what resumes sound like. That's what robots sound like when they're applying to become vice president of paperclips. What did you do?" "I maintained the production calendar. For how many crews?" 3 regular installers plus subcontractors." "How many active projects?" "Depends on the season. 12 to 20. "Say that." I changed the line. She rejected, facilitated, leveraged, optimized, and one use of spearheaded that I had included mostly to irritate her. "You coordinated," Dana said. You solved. You reduced delays. You dealt with furious people who had no sync. These are skills. Furious, synkless people. I'd hire you already. You don't have an opening. I said I don't have one in my pocket. We may post an operations coordinator position next month. I sat straighter. May, budget approval. Don't build a fantasy around it. I'm not. You sound disappointed for somebody who didn't call about a job. I'm allowed a complex inner life. Therapy teaching you that? Apparently. Dana grew quiet. You okay? I looked toward the workshop. Owen was carrying cabinet doors to the finishing area. Dean stood beside the loading bay with a clipboard talking to Travis. Yes. That sounded military. It means yes. It means stop asking. I didn't answer. Dana let me have the silence. Send the resume, she said, not because I'm promising anything, because it should exist. After we hung up, an email arrived from Owen with the subject, Hotel Load List? There were 3 question marks, which meant he had already asked Dean twice. I opened the hotel folder on the shared drive. The load list I had started the previous week was incomplete. The refrigerator panel had been modified, but nobody had updated its dimensions. 2 hardware boxes had been delivered without being checked against the manifest. The reception desk was still missing its cable management insert. I could have finished the list in 40 minutes. Instead, I replied, Draft is in hotel installation loadout. Production changes since Thursday need to be added by whoever approved them. Owen called. Whoever approved them is Dean. Then Dean should add them. He's at the Ashford house. Ask him when he gets back. We load Sunday night. It's Friday. Exactly. You have 2 days. Mara, please don't do the thing where you act like the amount of time is the problem. What thing am I doing? The reasonable voice. I'm speaking normally. Worse. I leaned back in my chair. What do you want from me? I want the load list. You have it. I want it finished. Then finish it. I don't know what changed. You worked on the pantry modification. I know what I changed. I don't know what Luis changed or what Dean promised the designer after the meeting. Call them. He was silent. Is this what you deal with? He asked. Which part? Having to chase everybody down and then getting blamed if a piece is missing? Yes, that's a terrible system. It isn't the system I designed. Another silence. Okay, he said finally. I'll call Luis. Before he hung up, I said, check the cable insert for the reception desk. A pause. See? You can't help yourself. I can help myself. I chose 1 item. He laughed. Progress. I sent Dana the resume at 4:17. At 4:21, I reopened the email to confirm the attachment had actually gone through. At 4:24, I checked again. At 5, Dean came home with Carol. She carried a grocery bag. He carried nothing. I brought pot roast, she announced. Is there a meeting I wasn't told about? I asked. Can a woman bring dinner? Not without celery. Carol looked down at the grocery bag as if betrayed by its transparency. Dean went to wash his hands. I helped her unpack carrots, onions, potatoes, and a roast large enough to require its own zoning permit. She moved around my kitchen with the confidence of someone who still considered it partially hers because her father-in-law had installed the cabinets. Dean says you're looking for a job, she said. I updated my resume. That wasn't what I asked. I gave her a look. Her mouth twitched. Apparently, it runs in the family. Yes, I'm looking. What kind? Operations. Medical transport, preferably. Carol peeled the plastic from the roast. You'd be good at that. I had prepared for criticism. Her answer left me with nowhere to put my defenses. Thank you. Long drive to Nashville. There are regional offices closer. What about the shop? There it was. What about it? Well, who'll do what you do? I assume Dean will hire someone. Carol arranged vegetables around the meat with unnecessary force. Hiring someone costs money. So does labor. You know what I mean? I laughed, despite myself. What? I've heard that sentence about 40 times this week. Carol dusted the roast with pepper. Maybe people keep saying it because you're being deliberately literal. Maybe people say it because the literal version sounds bad. She set down the pepper. Mara, I know Dean can be difficult. He can also be wonderful. That's what makes difficult matter. She looked at me for a long moment. Then Dean returned, drying his hands on his jeans. Mom told you why she's here? Celery, I said. Carol shot me a warning look. Dean pulled out a chair. I asked her to help us talk. I stared at him. You brought your mother to mediate our marriage? I brought someone who knows both of us. She gave birth to one of us, which means I know his faults, Carol said, and defend them. Her cheeks colored. Dean held up both hands. This is what I'm talking about. You're hostile before anyone says anything. I was updating my resume. You brought your mother because you won't talk to me. I talk to you every day. No, you correct me. You document me. You take everything I say and feed it to a counselor and Dana and now Owen. I haven't told Dana about us. Yet. Carol lowered herself into a chair. Can everybody stop acting like we're in court? No one is acting like we're in court, I said. Dean pointed toward the legal pad. She keeps a list of my work and every bad thing I say. 5 phrases. You counted them? You just called it a list. Carol closed her eyes briefly. The oven clicked as it heated. For several seconds, that was the only sound in the room. Then Carol asked, Mara, what do you want? Dean looked at me. It was a fair question, which made it dangerous. I want Dean to stop describing me as damaged whenever my choices inconvenience him. I don't, Dean said. Carol raised one hand. He stopped. I want my work treated like work, I continued. Not love when he needs it and selfishness when I don't provide it. Carol's face changed at that. Not agreement, recognition, quickly hidden. Dean leaned forward. And the resume. I want to know what my life looks like if I stop waiting for your company to become ours. His chair scraped backward. It is ours. Then put my name beside yours. The silence after that was absolute. I wasn't asking for ownership. I didn't want it. I was asking him to make his language visible. Dean's eyes hardened. You know the name can't change every time you feel unappreciated. Carol looked down at her hands. I nodded once. Then it isn't ours, I said. It's yours. Dean stood and walked out before the oven finished heating. Carol remained at the table. After a while, she said, His father used to call the shop ours too. I waited. She rubbed a spot of flour from her thumbnail, though we hadn't used flour. Until something went wrong, she added. Then it was somehow mine. I looked toward the hallway where Dean had disappeared. What went wrong? I asked. Carol gave a dry little laugh. Everything eventually. That's not an answer. No, it's marriage. She stood and began moving vegetables from the counter into the roasting pan, though they were already arranged. A carrot shifted 1/2 inch. A potato turned over. Walt was good with wood, she said. He could look at a crooked wall and build something that made the wall seem embarrassed. But paperwork offended him. Customers called the house at dinner. Suppliers called before breakfast. I kept the books, sent invoices, handled payroll. What was your title? Wife. The word sat between us. But that was a different time, she added quickly. Was it? Yes. And Dean isn't his father. I didn't say he was. You didn't have to. I nearly laughed at the familiar line, but Carol looked too tired. She covered the roasting pan with foil and pressed it tightly around the edges. Walt made me feel needed. Dean makes me feel needed. Then what's the problem? Needed isn't the same as valued. Her hand stopped. That sounds like counseling, she said. It sounds like English. She turned on me then, color rising above the collar of her blouse. Don't make me into some pathetic woman who didn't understand her own life. I love my husband. I chose him every day for 41 years, including days when he was selfish and arrogant and impossible. I didn't call you pathetic. You're looking at me like I'm a warning. I hadn't realized I was. Carol grabbed the oven mitts and shoved the pan into the oven. I'm not you, I said. No. You think being different means you'll never make the same mistakes. I think recognizing a mistake means I don't have to repeat it." Her face closed. For a few seconds, I thought she might leave. Instead, she set the timer for 3 hours and sat down again. When Walt got sick, she said, "The first person he asked for at the shop was me. Not Dean, not Owen, me." I waited. I thought that proved I'd mattered all along. She picked at a loose edge on the oven mitt. Maybe it did. There was enough uncertainty in her voice to hurt. "Maybe it did," I said. She looked at me. I could have pushed. Elaine might have asked what Carol needed that belief to mean. Dana would have asked whether Walt ever put it in writing. I let the silence stay unorganized. Carol left before the roast was done. At the back door, she told me not to let the carrots dry out, as if vegetables were the only danger either of us understood. Dean returned after dark. He came through the kitchen, saw the covered dishes on the stove, and asked, "She leave?" "Yes." "Of course she did. She stayed almost an hour. Did she tell you what a terrible husband Dad was?" "No." "She does that when she wants to feel wise. The cruelty was casual, practiced. I wondered whether he heard it. She said she loved him." Dean opened the roasting pan and tore off a piece of meat with his fingers. She loved complaining about him. She also did his office work without a title. He chewed while looking at me. "So you two bonded over being oppressed by cabinets?" I don't think she felt oppressed. Good. One less Vance for Elaine to liberate. I closed the lid on the roast. Dean sighed. "I'm tired, Mara." "So am I." "I don't want to fight about a company name. We weren't fighting about the name." "I know. It's symbolic." The word sounded unnatural in his mouth, as if he had borrowed it. "What does it symbolize?" "That you want recognition." "I want accuracy." "Fine. Accuracy." He pulled out a chair. "After the hotel job, we'll set up payroll. You can be operations manager. We'll figure out a fair rate." It was more than he had offered before. My reflex was to reward the movement. "Hours?" I asked. His expression shifted. "We'll figure it out." "Authority?" "What authority? Can I reject deadlines that don't fit production? Can I require written approval before changes? Can I schedule crews without you overriding me? This is exactly what I didn't want tonight. You offered a job. I offered to make you feel appreciated. That isn't the same thing." He stood so fast the chair rocked backward. "Nothing is enough now." I asked 3 questions. You turned my attempt to fix this into a negotiation. A job is a negotiation. I'm your husband. Then stop offering me a job when what you mean is reassurance. He stared at me for a long time. "You already sent that resume, didn't you?" "Yes." "To Dana?" "Yes." His jaw tightened. "Of course." He took a plate of pot roast to the living room. He didn't ask if I wanted to eat with him. Sunday evening, the hotel loadout began at 6. I watched from the kitchen window as Dean backed the box truck to the loading bay. Owen carried cabinets out with Travis, while Luis checked finish labels against a sheet on a clipboard. The load list existed. Owen had finished it. At 6:30, he knocked on the back door. "Do you have a black marker?" "In the shop desk." "Dean says there aren't any. Top drawer, left side, under the envelopes." He looked. I'm sure he experienced disappointment. Owen waited. I handed him a marker from the ceramic key bowl. "Thanks." He glanced toward the workshop. "You want to check the load?" "No. You made the drawings. You made the list." I made the list based on whatever people remembered to tell me. Then checking it against the same information won't improve it. I was hoping you knew things nobody told me. I usually do. His mouth pulled to one side. That's a deeply irritating quality. Check the hardware boxes against the manifest. Make sure the cable insert is inside the reception desk. I added it. "Then you don't need me." Dean called from the loading bay. "Owen!" Owen turned, then looked back at me. "He misses you," he said. "He misses the list in my head. Those aren't mutually exclusive." Before I could answer, Dean called again. Owen lifted the marker in thanks and jogged toward the shop. At 7:15, the truck doors closed. Dean came to the house for his wallet and found me reading on the couch. "We're loaded," he said. "Good. You could act like you care. I do care. You didn't come outside once. You told me the shop didn't stop because I was having an identity crisis." His face tightened. "So this is punishment?" "No. This is me not checking work I wasn't included in. You were included until you decided you weren't." He found his wallet beneath a stack of trade magazines. "We leave at 6, he said, "if you change your mind." "I won't." He nodded as if confirming something unpleasant about me. The next morning, my phone rang at 7:48. Owen. I watched it ring. Then a message appeared. I closed my eyes. Another message. I checked the desk. Dean said Luis loaded it separate. "It's not here." I called. Owen answered immediately. "Where is it?" "I don't know. You reminded me." "Yes, I checked it off." "Based on what?" Dean said Luis loaded it. Then asked Luis. "He says he left it on the finishing rack because the edge paint was soft. Is anybody at the shop?" "Travis is here with us." "Carol has a key," I said. Owen groaned. "Mom's 40 minutes from the shop. So am I from the hotel. You're 3 minutes from the shop." There it was. I could put on shoes, cross the gravel, find the insert, and drive it to Nashville. The hotel would lose less than an hour. Dean would be relieved. Owen would apologize. Everyone would remember the rescue and forget the system that required it. "I'm not driving it," I said. "Mara, I told you to verify it was inside the desk. I did verify. Dean gave me bad information. Then Dean can decide how to retrieve it." Owen lowered his voice. "He's standing right here." "Good." Dean took the phone. "Can you please bring the insert?" "No, this isn't about me. Luis and Owen and Travis are all standing around. They can start the wall cabinets. We need the desk first, then send someone back. That's a 2-hour round trip." "Probably. You're seriously going to let the whole crew sit here to prove you're right?" I told Owen to check the insert. You told him it was loaded. I thought it was. And now you know it isn't. His breath came hard through the speaker. "We'll talk tonight," he said. "You asked me for an answer. The answer is no." I ended the call. My stomach rolled. At 8:10, Dean sent Luis back for the insert. The installation continued without him. No one died. The hotel did not collapse. They lost time and paid for extra fuel. At 9:30, Dana emailed, "Position approved. Posting goes live today. Apply through the site so HR can pretend we've never met." The link led to an operations coordinator opening at Cumberland Regional's satellite office 34 minutes from our house. The duties were familiar: route planning, crew scheduling, coordination with care facilities, incident documentation. The salary wasn't miraculous. It was ordinary money for recognizable work. I applied before I could turn the decision into a referendum on my marriage. Dana texted 3 minutes later. That was fast. I wrote military reflex. She replied, "Interview Wednesday, wear a shirt that doesn't show sweat." I laughed out loud in the empty kitchen. Dean came home after 6 with a bag from the Thai restaurant I liked and a bundle of grocery store flowers. He set both on the table. "I don't want us to become people who keep hurting each other," he said. The sentence was so close to what I wanted that I didn't trust myself to answer. He stepped toward me carefully. "We could see someone together. Couples counseling? If that's what it takes." I searched his face for sarcasm and found none. "You called therapy weakness. I was wrong. You called me broken. I was cruel." The directness frightened me more than his anger. He took my hand. "I don't want to lose you over cabinets." My eyes burned. I hated that tenderness could reach places anger couldn't. "This isn't over cabinets," I said. "I know." He squeezed my fingers. For one moment, I believed he might. Then he saw the Cumberland confirmation email open on my laptop. His hand went slack. "What's that?" I could have minimized the screen. Instead, I turned it toward him. "I have an interview Wednesday." The tenderness vanished so quickly it left the room cold. "You applied today?" "Yes." While my crew was stranded at the hotel? The way he said it made the two things sound like the same act. I looked at the flowers between us. So this wasn't an apology, I said. It was a retrieval. Dean dropped my hand. That's not fair. Which part? Calling this a retrieval. I came home to apologize. And get me back into the shop. I came home because I love you. Those aren't mutually exclusive. He flinched, hearing Owen's words returned in my voice. The Thai food steamed inside its paper bag. Basil, garlic, coconut milk. He had remembered my order without asking. Green curry, medium heat, extra rice. The flowers were yellow chrysanthemums wrapped in clear plastic with a price sticker still attached. Ordinary evidence of care. Ordinary evidence had kept me confused for years. Dean pulled out a chair and sat. When were you going to tell me? I found out about the interview this morning. You found out about the job last week. I found out it might exist. You sent Dana your resume behind my back. I sent it from the kitchen table. That isn't what behind my back means. I know what you mean, I said, then nearly laughed at myself. He didn't. You're making plans that affect both of us, he said. So do you. We're back to the shop. We never left the shop. He rubbed his eyes with both hands. When he lowered them, some of the anger had drained away. If you take this job, who handles operations here? You hire someone. With what money? The money you said the company uses to pay our bills. You know margins are tight. I also know you just completed your biggest contract of the year. That payment covers materials, labor, and the line of credit. I didn't argue. I knew enough about the company to know he was telling the truth. The hotel contract looked impressive on paper, but impressive numbers shrank after payroll, lumber, hardware, finishing, fuel, and the 1,000 small expenses Dean treated as personal insults. Then handle the operations yourself, I said. I can't be in the shop on job sites and answering every client call. No, you can't. He stared at me. That was the whole unpaid office manager problem in 2 sentences, and he still looked offended that I had allowed it to exist. What about couples counseling? I asked. His mouth moved before any sound came out. You still want to do that? He asked. You offered. Before I saw this. I looked at the interview confirmation, so counseling was available only if I wasn't changing anything. That's not what I said. Then schedule it. I don't know who to call. The VA can give us referrals. There are private counselors in town. You already know how all this works. Why don't you schedule it? I almost answered. The names of 3 local practices came to mind. I knew our insurance login, I knew Dean's production calendar, and which mornings were least likely to interfere with installation. In under an hour, I could research, call, verify coverage, compare openings, and present him with choices. Then couples counseling would become one more system I operated so Dean could claim participation. You offered, I said. You schedule it. His face closed. Right. Another test. No. A phone call. He stood. The food's getting cold. We ate without speaking. The curry was exactly right. Before bed, I trimmed the flower stems and put the chrysanthemums in a water pitcher because we didn't own a vase tall enough. I disliked myself for doing it, then disliked the idea that refusing to care for flowers would count as strength. Dean slept with his back to me. I lay awake listening to pecans strike the awning. On Tuesday, the hotel designer sent a punch list update to Dean and copied me. 2 drawer fronts needed adjustment. A filler strip near the pantry showed a finish variation under the lobby lighting. The reception desk insert had arrived and fit. Dean replied, Mara will coordinate all corrections. I read the sentence 3 times. Then I wrote, I can provide drawing clarification for the approved plans. Dean is coordinating field corrections and crew scheduling. I copied Owen and Luis. Dean called immediately. I answered because I had learned that boundaries were not the same as hiding. Why would you send that to a client? He asked. Because it's accurate. You embarrassed me. You assigned me work without asking. It's a punch list. You always handle punch lists. I'm not handling this one. You designed half the project. I revised drawings. I did not approve the field changes. The designer doesn't care about our internal drama. Then don't put it in front of her. I didn't. You did? I clarified responsibilities. You made me look disorganized. I waited. He heard it too. Don't, he said. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. He ended the call. 10 minutes later, Owen emailed the designer with dates for both corrections. Luis confirmed he would refinish the filler strip. The exchange took 4 messages and 7 minutes. I forwarded nothing, explained nothing, and resisted the urge to congratulate them for accomplishing basic coordination. Dana called at 6 that evening. Mock interview, she announced. I'm eating. What? Toast? That isn't eating. That's surrendering. I'm not ready. That's why it's called a mock interview. She asked me to explain a time I had resolved a scheduling conflict. I began describing the hotel installation. Stop, she said. You're saying we. It was a group project. What did you do? I maintained the drawings and production schedule. What did you do when the appliance specifications changed? I identified the dimensional conflict, revised the elevations, coordinated with finishing, and adjusted the production sequence. Did anybody die? No. Did the project proceed? Yes. Then stop narrating your competence like it happened near you. We practiced for 40 minutes. She asked about my Army service, my shoulder limitations, my experience with incident documentation, and how I handled people under stress. Usually I lower my voice, I said. Why? People lean in to hear. It interrupts the escalation. You do that to me? No. You're beyond treatment. That's the warmth we want in the interview. After we hung up, I printed 2 copies of my resume. The printer jammed on the second one. I fixed it myself and considered that a neutral event. Wednesday morning, Dean cooked eggs. He stood at the stove in work pants and bare feet, moving scrambled eggs around the pan with a wooden spoon. 2 plates waited on the counter. Interview today? He asked. At 10. In person? Yes. He nodded toward the bedroom. What are you wearing? I haven't decided. The blue blouse looks good. It was the first thing he had said about the interview that wasn't shaped like opposition. Thank you. He divided the eggs between the plates. Mine got more because he knew I would give him half if he finished first. The designer moved the punch list call to 10, he said. My fork stopped. He kept his eyes on his plate. Owen's handling it, he added. I'm not asking you to cancel. Okay, I just thought you should know. Why? In case it comes up. At the interview? In case you wanted to call after. The old machinery stirred. The filler strip, the drawer fronts, Luis's schedule. Questions Owen might not anticipate. I won't be available. I said I'm not asking. He sounded sincere, which made the placement of the information more effective, not less. I ate my eggs. The Cumberland satellite office occupied 1 floor of a low brick building beside an outpatient imaging center. No helicopters, no dramatic rush of stretchers, just dispatch monitors, scuffed tile, a coffee machine with an out-of-order sign, and adults wearing headsets while trying to move patients between facilities without turning traffic, weather, or human unpredictability into disaster. It felt familiar in my body before it felt familiar in my mind. Dana met me in the lobby wearing navy slacks and an ID badge. She hugged me once, hard, then held me at arm's length. Blue blouse, she said. Good choice. Dean picked it. Her expression changed. He said it looked good. I didn't say anything. You made a face. I have a face. The hiring manager was a compact woman named Rhonda Ellis, who took notes in green ink. The second interviewer, Martin Shaw, supervised dispatch and had the careful patience of a man accustomed to repeating addresses over bad connections. They asked why I wanted to return to medical operations. Because details matter here for a reason, I said. Rhonda looked up. They didn't matter in cabinetry? They mattered. But the authority and responsibility didn't always belong to the same person. Martin nodded slowly. They asked why Vance Custom Cabinetry wasn't listed as paid employment. I had rehearsed several polished versions. Instead, I said, it was unpaid work for my husband's business. The experience is real. The arrangement was informal. Would he be a reference? Rhonda asked. No. The answer came too quickly. Dana remained still at the end of the table. Rhonda made a note. Is there someone else who can verify your role? Yes. His brother, our installers, suppliers, clients. Our installers, I corrected myself, the company's installers. The interview lasted 53 minutes. I stumbled over one question about routing software, recovered on another about conflict escalation, and caught a discrepancy in a sample transport schedule Martin handed me. 2 crews had been assigned overlapping pickups 26 miles apart. He smiled when I pointed it out. No one gets that one, he said. Then you need better applicants. Dana coughed into her fist to hide a laugh. No one offered me a job. Rhonda said they had other interviews and would contact me by Friday. That was all. In the parking lot, my hands began to shake. Dana leaned against my car. Adrenaline dump? I'm fine. Sure. I talked too much. You did not. I told them my husband can't be a reference. Good. That sounded bad. It sounded true. I looked back at the building. I want it. I know. That frightened me more than the interview. At home, Owen was sitting on the back steps with a bottle of water. How'd it go? He asked. I stopped. How do you know? Dean told us you had an appointment. What kind? Owen's face tightened. He said you were figuring out what you wanted to do next. That's what he said. Pretty much. It was close enough to the truth that I could see the effort it had cost him. How did the punch list call go? Fine. Luis is fixing the strip tomorrow. Drawer fronts. Friday. You handled it. Apparently, I'm employable. He smiled, then looked down at the bottle in his hands. Dean's in a mood. When isn't he? This one has weather. I sat beside him. After a moment, he said, If you leave, the shop's gonna hurt. I know. He could hire somebody, but they won't know everything you know. They can learn. Dean won't teach them. Then Dean will have to learn how to teach. Owen peeled at the label on his bottle. You make that sound simple. It isn't. Do you want the business to fail? The question hurt because I understood why he asked. No. Then why does it feel like you're letting go of the rope? I watched dust move across the gravel between the house and shop. Because I finally noticed the rope is tied around me, I said. Owen stared toward the loading bay. After a while, he nodded. Not agreement. Not yet. But he didn't ask me to grab it again. Owen finished his water and stood. For what it's worth, he said, you look nice for the interview. You sound surprised. I've mostly seen you in shirts with glue on them. That's because nobody in your family understands coasters. He smiled, then glanced toward the workshop. I should go warn Travis about the weather. Dean's already asked him 3 times whether the drawer fronts are level. Are they? Yes. Then Travis will live. Owen crossed the gravel. I watched him enter the shop and speak to Dean. Dean looked through the loading bay door toward the house. He didn't come in until after 7. I was heating soup when he set his keys in the ceramic bowl. How was the interview? He asked. Good. Dana interview you. She sat in. 2 other people asked the questions. Did they offer you anything? Not yet. He nodded as if that settled a private argument. Could be for the best. I turned down the burner. For whom? I'm just saying, you haven't worked in medical transport for a long time. I haven't worked in cabinetry either, according to every formal record. That's not what I mean. Then say what you mean. He leaned against the counter. You've had a rough couple of years. The words were out before he recognized them. I looked at him. He closed his eyes. Poor choice. Familiar choice. I meant the sleep. Your shoulder. Everything you deal with. My shoulder has been stable for 5 years. Until it isn't. Is that what you'd tell Cumberland if they called? His eyes opened. You didn't list me as a reference. How do you know? You just told me. I had, without meaning to. He gave a humorless laugh. That's unbelievable. You put 6 years at my company on a resume, but won't let anybody verify it with me. I listed Owen, Travis, Luis, suppliers, and clients as if I don't exist. You've spent years telling people my work doesn't exist. I never said that. You describe me as your wife who helps. You are my wife. I'm also the person who built your production calendar. My production calendar. He straightened. There. That's what this is really about. You want credit for everything. I want credit for what I did. You want everyone to think I'm incompetent. No. You sit there with that look while I struggle, and you enjoy being the one person who knows how to fix it. The accusation landed because it contained a sliver of truth. There had been moments when Dean's relief fed something in me. When a crisis ended because I entered the room, I felt certain of my value. Necessary people rarely got left behind. I liked being useful, I said. You liked being superior. No, I liked believing you needed me because you loved me. He stared at me. The soup began bubbling. I turned off the heat. That is a horrible thing to say, he said quietly. It wasn't meant to be. I have loved you through things most men wouldn't understand. The sentence took all the air from the kitchen. What things? He lifted one hand. You know. No, tell me. The nightmares, the appointments, your moods, years of not knowing whether a noise would set you off. What did that love cost you? Don't do that. What did you give up? I gave you patience. I could hear pecans tapping the awning, 3 small strikes, then quiet. You also got an operations department, I said. His face hardened. I'm not doing this tonight. He walked away. The soup stayed in the pot. At 10 the next morning, Elaine asked why I looked tired. Apparently because therapy isn't working. Who said that? Dean didn't use those words. What words did he use? He said, I've had a rough couple of years. Have you? Maybe. But he says it like he's been carrying me. Has he? The honest answer was complicated. Dean had held ice against my shoulder after surgery. He had learned not to touch me from behind. During my worst stretch of insomnia, he sometimes sat awake with me and watched terrible cooking shows until sunrise. He'd also reminded me of those kindnesses whenever I asked what I carried for him. Sometimes, I said. And you've carried him? Sometimes. What makes the two kinds of carrying different? Mine doesn't get called love. Elaine was quiet. I looked away from the screen. Cumberland may call tomorrow. What will you do if they offer the job? Take it. I heard the certainty after the word had left me. Elaine heard it too. How does that feel? Like I may throw up on a dispatcher. Try to wait until your second week. I laughed. Then I told her Dean had offered couples counseling and asked me to schedule it. Did you? No. Why? I want him to make the call. Has he? No. What does that tell you? That he's busy. Elaine waited. That he wants credit for offering, I added, without having to be the one who makes it real. Would you attend if he scheduled? Yes. That answer was certain too. I wasn't done loving him. I was only done treating love as proof that nothing was wrong. Cumberland called Friday at 11:18. Rhonda Ellis offered me the operations coordinator position at the salary listed, with health coverage, paid leave, and a start date, 2 weeks from Monday. Her tone was so ordinary that for a second I thought I had misunderstood. You're offering me the job? Yes. Now? If this is a bad time, I can call back. No. No, this is fine. Dana's voice sounded faintly in the background. Professional, Mara. Rhonda sighed. Dana is not supposed to be in my office. I'm watering a plant, Dana called. You've been watering it for 10 minutes. It was dehydrated. I smiled so hard my cheeks hurt. I accept, I said. Rhonda explained the written offer, background screening, and onboarding forms. I took notes, even though she promised to email everything. After we hung up, I sat alone at the kitchen table. No music swelled. No one saluted. The workshop kept running across the gravel. A delivery truck backed toward the loading bay with a shrill electronic beep. I had a job. I called Dana first. Don't get emotional, she said. Rhonda will think I hired a human being. Thank you. You got it yourself. You made me send the resume. You made the resume worth sending. That sounded uncomfortably close to kindness, so I told her she still owed me $40. Then I called Dean. He didn't answer. I left no message. Carol arrived at 6, carrying cornbread and a bowl covered in foil. Owen came behind her with 2 bottles of wine. Apparently, Dean had invited them to dinner that morning and neglected to mention it to me. "What are we celebrating?" I asked. "The hotel job," Carol said. Owen looked at my face. "You didn't know? I knew the job was finished. I didn't know we were hosting dinner. Dean said he told you. Dean says many things." Carol handed me the bowl. "Green beans." "I still have your last green beans. Those are old." "They're 4 days old." "Exactly." Dean entered from the shop carrying a bakery cake. "Congratulations, team," was written across the top in blue icing. He put it on the counter and saw my expression. "I told you Mom and Owen were coming." "When?" "Wednesday." "Wednesday I had an interview. Before that." "No." He shook his head. "Fine. I thought I told you." That was as close as Dean came to admitting a small mistake when a larger conflict was nearby. Dinner began peacefully. Carol had made chicken instead of pot roast. Owen described the hotel manager attempting to open a soft-close drawer by yanking it repeatedly, convinced the hardware was stuck. "People don't trust anything that resists them," Carol said. I looked at Dean. He noticed. "So," he said, setting down his fork, "are you going to tell them?" The table went quiet. "I got the Cumberland job." Owen smiled first. "You did?" "Yes." "That's great." Dean looked at him. "Is it?" Owen's smile faded. "I mean, for Mara." "And what about the shop?" "There it is," I said. Carol looked between us. "When do you start?" 2 weeks from Monday." "That soon?" Dean asked. "It's a standard start date. You can't hand off 6 years in 2 weeks. I can document current projects and show whoever you hire how the files work. Whoever I hire." He leaned back. "Like replacing you is that simple." I didn't say it was simple. "You act like the shop is some abusive boyfriend you finally escaped." "Don't be ridiculous," Carol said. I couldn't tell which of us she meant. Dean laughed without humor. "I'm ridiculous. Mom's controlling. Owen's lazy. Apparently therapy has taught Mara to diagnose everybody except herself." The sentence changed the temperature at the table. I put down my fork. "What did you say during my appointment?" I asked. His eyes narrowed. "What?" "The day you called therapy weakness." "What did you say next?" "Mara," Carol warned. "No." He thinks Elaine is putting words in my mouth. I want to hear his. Dean pushed food around his plate. "I don't remember." "Yes, you do." I was irritated. "I said something stupid. Repeat it. This is exactly the performance I'm talking about. Repeat it." Owen stopped eating. Dean looked at him, then Carol, measuring the room. "I said the VA pays you for being broken," he muttered. And I asked how much more attention you needed." Carol's face went pale. "It wasn't like that," Dean added. "She had the computer muted." "No," I said. "I didn't." He looked at me. I could see the moment the kitchen returned to him. My hand beside the laptop, the screen turned slightly away, his certainty that only I could hear. Elaine heard every word. His face emptied. "You told me the connection froze." I lied. "Why?" "Because I needed one person to hear how you spoke when you thought no one important was listening." Owen stared at Dean. Carol said, "You called her broken while you use her VA money to support the household?" "Mom. And while she runs your office for free?" "She does not run my office." Owen shifted in his chair. Dean saw it. "Don't." "I didn't say anything," Owen replied. "You made a face. I have a face. Under any other circumstances, I might have laughed. Carol didn't. Answer me." Dean stood. I made one cruel comment. One. "She's been collecting it for weeks, feeding it to a counselor, turning my brother and my mother against me." "No one turned me," Carol said. "I heard you. You heard her version. I just heard yours." His chair hit the wall behind him. The sound pulled every muscle in my body tight. Dean saw that too. Something desperate broke across his face. "You want the truth?" he said. Fine. I am tired of being made small in my own company. Every time something goes wrong, everybody looks for Mara. Every time she fixes it, she stands there quiet so I can feel how much smarter she is. Clients ask for her. Owen asks for her. Even Mom looks at me like I'm Dad and she's the woman doing all the real work. Carol inhaled sharply. Dean pointed at me. You needed me when you came here. You needed a place where you didn't have to prove anything. Now you've got a counselor telling you you're strong and a new job telling you you're valuable. And suddenly I'm the weak one. No one said you were weak, I said. You didn't have to. His eyes filled. That was the worst part. He wasn't pretending. He had mistaken my competence for an accusation because it existed beside him. I never wanted you to feel small, I said. You just wanted me to admit you built everything. No, I wanted you to stop standing on me and calling yourself tall. The words landed harder than I intended. Dean went still. Then he picked up the cake and threw it into the sink. The plastic lid cracked. Blue icing smeared across the stainless steel. No one moved. Dean walked out through the back door. Across the gravel, the workshop lights came on one row at a time. Carol stood first. She went to the sink, lifted the cracked plastic lid, and stared at the cake beneath it. Congratulations, team, had become Congratulations, T, with the final letter folded into blue icing. Leave it, I said. She reached for a dish towel. Carol. Her hand stopped. I used to clean up before anyone saw, she said. Owen looked toward the back door. We saw. Yes. She set the towel down. You did. The three of us remained around the table with Dean's empty chair pushed against the wall. The chicken cooled. Melted ice clicked inside the tea pitcher. Owen spoke without looking at me. He was right about one thing. Carol turned sharply. This isn't the time to defend him. I'm not. He rubbed both palms over his jeans. I do look for Mara when something goes wrong. We all do. That isn't your fault, I said. Some of it is. I knew you weren't being paid. I knew you fixed everything. I just never put those facts next to each other. Carol sat again. I thought she wanted it that way, she said. So did I, Owen replied. They both looked at me, waiting for a verdict I couldn't give. I did want to help, I said. At first. And then? Carol asked. Then helping became the price of peace. The workshop door opened across the gravel. Dean appeared briefly in the light, moving between the work table and his office. He didn't look toward the house. Carol reached for my wrist, then withdrew before touching me. Come stay with me tonight. No. Don't be stubborn. I'm not leaving my home because Dean threw a cake. You jumped when the chair hit the wall. The observation embarrassed me. I react to sudden sounds. I know what your reactions look like, Mara. That was different. Owen's jaw tightened. He's never hit me, I said. Carol closed her eyes. I heard Elaine's voice as clearly as if she sat at the table. That wasn't what I asked. I'm staying here, I said. You two should go. I'm not leaving you alone, Carol replied. I won't be alone. Dean is 30 yards away, turning on lights to prove he doesn't need anyone. Owen almost smiled. Carol didn't. What happens when he comes back, she asked. We talk. And if he gets angry, he will. She looked at the cracked cake lid again. I taught him this, she said. No, I taught both of them that a woman would come behind them and make the mess disappear. Owen shifted uncomfortably. I'm sitting here. I know where you're sitting. You didn't teach Dean to call me broken, I said. I taught him apologies were enough if the woman stayed. There was nothing useful to say to that. Carol packed the food into containers. She left the cake in the sink. At the door, Owen said, Call me if you need me. I won't need you. I know. Call anyway. After their vehicles disappeared, I cleared the table but left the cake untouched. Dean returned at 11:17. I was on the couch with the television off. He entered quietly, put his keys in the ceramic bowl, and stood inside the kitchen, as if uncertain which room belonged to him. I'm sorry I threw the cake, he said. Okay. I didn't throw it at anybody. I know. It was cake. I know what it was. He glanced toward the sink. Mom leave it there? I did. Why? Because I didn't want the first thing we did to be cleaning up for you. His face hardened, but his voice stayed controlled. You set me up tonight. How? You waited until everyone was here to tell me Elaine heard. You brought up therapy. You could have told me privately. I could have told you the day it happened. Why didn't you? Because I had wanted one fact he couldn't revise. Because I knew he would behave differently if he believed every conversation had a witness. Because part of me had been afraid that if I told him, he would convince me it hadn't mattered. I needed time to understand what I heard, I said. What you heard, I said it. Yes. Then why make it sound like an investigation? I'm trying to understand why you're kinder when someone important can hear you. His eyes flashed. So I'm abusive now. I didn't use that word. Elaine does? She asked if I felt safe. And what did you say? I hesitated. That was enough. Dean took a step back. Unbelievable. I told her you've never hit me. You told a stranger she needed to ask. She heard you call me broken, and you lied to me about it. You let me sit here for weeks while the two of you analyzed me. My counseling is about me. Not anymore. He paced once across the kitchen, stopped at the drawer holding the legal pad, then looked at me. How many pages? What? How many pages of things I've done wrong? The phrases are on one page. Can I see it? No, why not? Because it's mine. About me. Written by me. He laughed bitterly. You want privacy after broadcasting our marriage to everyone. You told your mother about my sleep. You told clients I couldn't handle meetings. You told your crew I was going through something. You don't object to broadcasting. You object to losing control of the description. He stared at me for several seconds. Then he said, Don't go to Cumberland. The words were quiet. I accepted the job. Call them back. No. We can fix the shop arrangement. Payroll, hours, whatever you want. I don't want the shop arrangement. I'll schedule counseling. Then schedule it. I will. Good. But don't start the job while we're trying to repair this. Why? Because you're building an exit. I'm building employment. Same thing. Only if you think my dependence is holding the marriage together. His expression told me I had hit something he didn't want named. He went to the bedroom. I waited until the door closed, then pulled 2 cabinet door samples from the spare room floor and leaned them in the hallway. I cleared enough space to reach the bed. For the first time since Dean converted the room into storage, I slept there. He did not schedule counseling the next day. I emailed him, Owen, and the company account a transition list instead. Current projects, pending approvals, supplier contacts, file locations, passwords that belong to the business, and tasks requiring reassignment. At the top, I wrote that my last day providing regular operational support would be the Friday before I started at Cumberland. Dean replied, This is unnecessary. Owen replied, Received. Then, in a separate message, This is terrifyingly organized. I wrote back, That was the idea. The following days moved with the strained politeness of a unit waiting for weather clearance. Dean slept in our bedroom. I slept among finish samples named Harvest Fog and Rural Sophistication. We passed each other in the kitchen and discussed practical things. The electric bill was due. Carol's container needed to be returned. The bathroom faucet had started dripping. He did not mention the job. I did not mention counseling. At the shop, I completed only the work already in my hands. I finalized the hotel as-built drawings. I answered questions tied to changes I had approved. I showed Owen how to update the production calendar and gave him access to the client contact log. He stared at the screen. There are 5 tabs. There are 9. Why can I only see 5? Scroll right. He did. This is hostile. You've said. Dean watched from the doorway. You don't need to teach him all that, he said. Somebody needs to know it. I know it. What's the lead time on Blum hinges right now? Owen asked. Dean's mouth tightened. Depends. On? The hinge. Owen looked at me. Don't, Dean said. Owen returned to the screen. Dean still didn't post a job opening. Instead, he began arriving at the house with small proofs that he could change. He fixed the dripping faucet without being asked. He took Carol's containers back himself. He put laundry in the dryer before it soured and folded my shirt separately from his. One evening, he left a printed list of local couples counselors on the kitchen table. 3 names were highlighted. "Did you call?" I asked. I researched. "Did you call?" "Not yet." The paper remained on the table for 2 days. On my final Friday, the shop phone rang at 8:12. No one answered. I was at the desk completing a supplier contact sheet. The ring reached me through the wall, thin and insistent. Owen passed behind me carrying hardware. "You gonna get that?" he asked. "No." "Right." He set down the box and answered it himself. "Vance Custom Cabinetry, this is Owen." He listened, found the correct client file, and wrote a message directly into the contact log. When he hung up, he looked at me. "I did it. You answered a telephone." I was promised more celebration. I stood and gave him a restrained round of applause. Dean came out of his office. "What's funny?" "Nothing," Owen and I said together. At noon, Carol brought lunch. She put a paper sack on my desk rather than setting everything up in the break room. "For your new office," she said. Inside was a glass food container with a locking lid and my name written on tape across the top. "You know they have cafeterias," I said. "And thank you." She nodded, then looked toward Dean's office. "He asked me for money yesterday." My hand stopped on the lid. "For what?" "Cash flow. The hotel payment is slower than he expected, and he's behind after paying Luis for the extra work. Are you giving it to him?" "No." That answer seemed to surprise her as much as it did me. He said the company could fail. Will it? Not because I refuse to mortgage my house. If it fails, it'll be because he keeps solving tomorrow with something that belongs to another person. The sentence sounded practiced. Maybe she had been waiting years to say it to the correct Vance man. "I'm sorry," I said. "So am I." She touched the food container. "Don't return this one. It's yours." My last afternoon ended without ceremony. I shut down the computer, cleared my notes, and gave Owen the key to the file cabinet. Dean stayed inside his office with the door open, speaking loudly to a supplier about payment terms. I carried my laptop case across the gravel. The legal pad was already in the house. My resume lived in Cumberland's system. Everything that belonged to Vance Custom Cabinetry remained behind. Dean came in after dark. He found me ironing the blue blouse Dana had approved. "You're really going Monday," he said. "Yes." He stood in the doorway watching the iron move over the fabric. "If you walk into that job, you're choosing it over this marriage." I set the iron upright. "No," I said. "I'm choosing a job. You're choosing what it means." He waited for me to soften it. I didn't. He remained in the doorway another few seconds. Then he said, "I hope it's worth it." I lowered the iron onto the sleeve of my blouse. So do I. He slept in our bedroom. I slept in the spare room. At 6 the next morning, I dressed among cabinet samples and carried my lunch to the car in the glass container Carol had given me. Dean's truck was still parked beside the shop. He hadn't come outside to say goodbye. Cumberland's coffee machine had been repaired over the weekend. Dana considered this suspicious. "Don't drink it until somebody else survives," she said, handing me a temporary badge. "You're a medical professional, which is why I understand risk." Rhonda walked me through dispatch, scheduling, facility contacts, and the software I had admitted I didn't know. No one expected me to understand everything before lunch. No one handed me a disaster and called the resulting panic trust. At 11, Martin asked me to review the next day's dialysis routes. I found one crew assigned to a pickup 20 minutes before they were scheduled to finish a transport in another county. "I think this overlaps," I said. Martin rolled his chair over, checked the screen, and nodded. "You're right. Move the earlier pickup to crew 4 and notify the facility. That was it. No one laughed and called me the real boss. No one acted threatened. I noticed a problem. The person with authority agreed, and the responsibility to correct it became mine in the same moment. I stared at the screen half a second too long. "You okay?" Martin asked. "Yes." "System freeze?" "No, personal system." He accepted that explanation with the solemnity it deserved. At lunch, Dana opened the container Carol had packed and inspected my sandwich. "Your mother make this?" Dean's mother. She cut it diagonally. She considers rectangles hostile. Dana bit into an apple. "How's he handling today?" "He told me he hoped the job was worth it." "What did you say?" "That I hoped so, too." Annoyingly mature. I ironed my blouse. "I'm a professional now." She studied me. "You going home tonight?" "I live there." That wasn't what I asked. I looked down at my sandwich. "Yes," I said. "I'm going home." Dean was at the kitchen table when I returned. The legal pad lay in front of him. My bag slipped against my shoulder. "What are you doing?" "Waiting." I set down the glass container. "Did you read that?" "No. You took it out of the drawer. It was on the table." "No, it wasn't." His eyes held mine. Then he pushed it toward me. "Fine." I took it out. I picked it up and checked the pages. What I do remained at the front. The phrases were still farther back. Nothing looked disturbed, but paper didn't show fingerprints unless someone important cared enough to look. "What do you want?" I asked. "How was work?" "Good, just good." I learned the routing software. I met the dispatch teams. I found a scheduling conflict. His jaw tightened at the last sentence. "Of course you did." I put the pad under my arm. "There's a problem at the Linden installation," he said. "No, you don't even know what it is. I don't work there anymore. You drew the original built-in. 3 months ago, the left tower is 1.25 inches too wide. Then check the field measurements." "Owen measured it." "Then check with Owen. He says you changed the scribe allowance." "I sent a revision after Dean. You approved the plaster repair. Can you look at the file?" "No." He stood. "This is our reputation. It's your company. Stop saying that like you enjoy it. I don't enjoy any of this." "Then help." The plea was real. So was my answer. "No." He stared at me, then walked into the bedroom and shut the door. The next morning, Owen was waiting beside my car. He held a roll of drawings beneath one arm and looked as if he hadn't slept. "I'm not fixing the Linden cabinet," I said. "I know. Dean sent you?" "No." He unrolled one drawing across the hood of my car. My revision note was highlighted in yellow. "Existing plaster return varies. Field verify after repair. Maintain 1.5-inch scribe minimum." Below it was an email from Dean. "We don't need that much scribe. Build to finished opening." "Did you build to the finished opening?" I asked. Dean told me to. "Did you field verify after the plaster repair?" I tried. The contractor hadn't finished. Dean said we couldn't delay production. And now the tower doesn't fit. It fits if the wall moves. Walls are stubborn. Owen didn't smile. "He blamed me in front of the client," he said. Said I measured wrong. I looked at the email. "You have his instruction." I showed him. What did he say? That I should have known better. A bitter laugh escaped him. "So if I ignore him, I'm disloyal. If I listen and it fails, I'm incompetent." I folded the printout along its existing crease. "Yes." Owen watched me. "That was your job, wasn't it?" "Part of it." "Standing between whatever he promised and whoever had to build it." "Yes." He took the drawing back. I quit. The words startled me even though his face had already said them. "When?" "About 20 minutes ago." "What did Dean say?" "Nothing at first. Then several things that can't be printed on company letterhead." "What will you do?" "Luis says a millwork shop in Franklin needs an installer. That's a long drive. So is working for Dean lately." He rolled up the drawing. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," he said. "I wanted you to know I finally understood." I touched his arm. Understanding doesn't make the cabinet smaller. No, but a track saw might. That earned the smile he wanted. He left before Dean came outside. For the next 3 weeks, Dean and I lived inside the same house while our lives separated by inches. I left before 7. He worked late. I stopped checking the shop calendar. He stopped asking about Cumberland. The local counselors he had highlighted remained uncalled. At work, I learned to dispatch wheelchair transports, coordinate late discharges, and recognize which facilities said ready when they meant we've begun considering paperwork. I also learned that I had no idea how to leave on time. At 5:30 evening, Dana rolled her chair into my cubicle. "Go home. I'm finishing tomorrow's routes. Tomorrow has employees. If I finish this, they can start clean. They can also start competent. I'm almost done." She reached over and turned off my monitor. I stared at her. "You're going to lose that hand. Not before you complete an incident report. I hate you." "No, you find me operationally valuable." I went home. Dean was sitting in the dark living room. "Owen started in Franklin," he said. "I know, of course you do. I gave him your company," he continued. "I taught him everything. Then he'll be good at his new job." Dean laughed without humor. "Mom won't help either. She told me. She told you before she told me. She told me you asked. I wasn't asking for charity. I offered to repay her." "With what?" "The hotel balance, which you need for the company." I needed time. The desperation in his voice was new. Dean had always behaved as if time belonged to someone else and could be moved around the schedule. "I'm selling the showroom equipment," he said. "I can keep the workshop and do smaller jobs myself. You're good at the work. That's your response?" "It's true. You destroyed my business and want to compliment my craftsmanship. I didn't destroy anything. You left at the worst possible time. Owen left because you turned him against me. Mom thinks I'm dad. Clients think I can't manage my own projects. Why do they think that? Because you made yourself indispensable and then walked away." I sat across from him. "I didn't make myself indispensable alone. Every time you handed me a problem, I solved it because I thought that was love. Every time I solved it, you handed me a bigger one and called that love too. I did love you." "Did?" His eyes filled. "Do," he said. The word hurt more than I expected. I loved him too. He could still make me laugh. I still knew the scar on his left palm and the exact pressure of his hand at the back of my neck when he was proud of me. Love had not disappeared. It had simply stopped being enough to explain away the rest. "I'm moving out," I said. Dean's face went still. "You already found a place?" "Yes." I had signed the lease that afternoon. A 1-bedroom apartment 28 minutes from Cumberland, on the second floor of a brick complex that smelled faintly of mulch and somebody else's laundry detergent. "When?" "Saturday." "So you've been planning this?" "I've been deciding. Without me. It's my decision." He stood and paced to the window. "What happened to couples counseling?" "You never called. I've been trying to save the company. You asked me to wait until after the hotel. Then until after I started work. Then until things calmed down. Things only calm down when I absorb them. I'll call tomorrow. Call for yourself." He turned. The anger I expected didn't come. He looked frightened. "I don't know who I am if you don't need me," he said. For a second, I saw the wound beneath all his cruelty. Not an excuse, not a villain's secret, just a frightened man who had made another person smaller so he could feel essential. "I did need you," I said. "I needed a husband. You kept offering me a supervisor." He sat again. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Then he asked, "Is there somebody else?" "No." "Dana?" "Dana is married to a woman who owns 3 horses. That sounds exhausting. It is. They show pictures." He laughed once, and I did too. That was how the marriage ended. Not cleanly, not with hatred, but with both of us laughing in a dark room and knowing laughter could no longer carry us back. On Saturday, I packed my clothes, army photographs, books, laptop, and the yellow legal pad. Carol arrived with boxes. Owen came with his truck. Neither of them spoke for me. Dean stood in the kitchen while I removed my keys from the ceramic bowl. "You can take that," he said. "The bowl, you bought it. I don't want it." It held loose screws, his shop key, and the Canadian coin that still explained nothing. It belonged to the house now. At the door, Dean said, "I am sorry. Not for the cake, not for pressure, not because he was tired, just sorry." "I know," I said. I believed him. I left anyway. Dean sold the showroom machinery 2 months later and let the showroom lease go. He kept the original workshop and returned to building cabinets himself, taking fewer jobs and making promises he had to measure with his own hands. Carol did not mortgage her house. Owen stayed in Franklin. Cumberland did not become a magical life. Dispatchers called out sick. Facilities changed pickup times. Weather ruined beautiful schedules. Once I sent a crew to the wrong entrance of a hospital and spent 20 minutes apologizing to 3 angry adults. But when I made a mistake, it remained mine. When I solved a problem, that remained mine too. 6 months after I started, Martin asked me to conduct a safety briefing for the transport teams. I stood in front of a conference room with route maps on the screen behind me and explained what to do when a planned transfer became an emergency. Someone interrupted with a question. 2 people spoke at once. A phone rang. My voice stayed steady. Not the voice I used to make Dean comfortable. Not the voice that lowered itself so angry people would lean in. My own. That evening, I took my counseling call at the small table in my apartment. The yellow legal pad was in a drawer beside clean takeout menus. No cabinet samples blocked the room. No phone rang from across the gravel. Elaine's bookcase was still crooked. "What does strength feel like now?" she asked. I looked around the apartment I had chosen, at the silence I no longer mistook for abandonment. "Not enduring the most pain without complaint," I said, hearing contempt clearly, believing what it reveals, and refusing to organize my life around it. Elaine nodded. Outside, rain began tapping against the windows. I heard rain. Only rain.